1025. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? A full sports weekend.
Yep. Happy Labor Day. It's here we go. We got all the college football, got pro football now. You had, soccer last night, like the biggest soccer weekend ever Nashville's ever had. So, lots to discuss.
There is. I was at the Nashville SC game Friday night. Big win for the boys in gold, 3-1, taking on New York City. This just in, Hani Mukhtar, it's pretty good. 2 goals the other night. And by the way, Robby Stanley on the board for NSC Pick to Click.
Nice.
Brought to you by Camarena Tequila. We're finally all on the board.
Well, how about me finding out Randall Leal wasn't even playing after I picked my Pick to Click?
Sometimes that happens.
It happens.
Yeah. That's the
luck
of the draw.
Hey, but good Catter Day, by the way. Yeah, we got a lot of different games, but Kentucky's got a quarterback, huh?
They do.
Finally.
Apparently looks bananas very strangely, but yeah. Apparently that's what happens.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yes, it was. Alyssa Lang tried to mimic that, too. Worked out pretty well.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Very good job by her. USA, Canada last night. I was in the house for that one, too. That one was a little frustrating in there, but 43,000 in the house last night for Nissan Stadium for the United States and Canada, a 1-1 draw, the final score last night.
I saw there was some anger on Twitter last night on the and I honestly don't even know who the reference was to, but some of the soccer writers are mad about some other Nashville media, and I didn't look around to see who said what, but about like complaining about the crowd or complaining about the stadium or whatever. What do you think of 43,000?
Well, it's lower than I thought it would be. I thought they would be in the 50s to high 50s of attendance there. So the 43,000 part of it, honestly, I was a little disappointed in. Now, the atmosphere was great. The entire lower bowl was full. I was on the club level. It was full. They had part of the upper deck on one side of the stadium that was pretty crowded up there too. So, there are plenty of people there, and there's a lot of people there, but I thought it would be somewhere in the 50s. And look, honestly, we talked about it, and I think Gentry Estes brought this up a couple weeks ago. If you're trying to get a World Cup spot, if you're Nashville in 2026, you need as many people showing up as you can, and I don't know that 43,000 is going to help you much in that area.
Yeah, I guess you could still say, well, but the World Cup's different, and if they actually got the World Cup, they'd fill the place.
Sure.
But, I would think so. I would think the higher the number, the better. And there's a lot more to it too. The stadium itself is a big thing for sure with that whole push. But yeah, it seems to me like I guess 40+ thousand for a match like this seems to me like pretty good. But yeah, is it quite what they wanted? Probably not. It still makes for a weekend of about 65,000 people watching soccer in that stadium, which is that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that how much did the number matter to the FIFA people? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see there. And again, great crowd last night in terms of, people were having fun the whole time. It was a 1-1 game where the Canadians drove me nuts last night. Just the flopping that went on last night. Every time the USA got a break, somebody on Canada's flailing around and fly. It drove me nuts last night. I never thought I could hate Canadian soccer, but here we are, Joe Rexrode at 6:02 Monday morning. I hate Canadian soccer.
Wow. So you're saying that the Canadian team flops?
Oh man,
more than the norm, much more. They flopped way more than.
Well, I can't speak on every Canadian match, but last night it was like an Olympic diving team.
They were
they
were like Wisconsin basketball.
Yes, just all over the place.
Yeah, okay. It's too bad.
And then now you've got your first 2 World Cup qualifying matches for the U.S. They end in draws, which it's better than a loss, but at some point you're going to have to start winning some games here.
Yeah. Seems like kind of disappointing, especially when you're up 1-0
at home.
To not right. Yeah, to not get the W.
So disappointing on that front. Good atmosphere over the weekend at Nissan Stadium for soccer. in this town. Christian Pulisic playing last night as well, so it's fun to watch him. He about had one on a great play that, there was a ball kind of behind him, and he reached his foot back and basically just back-heeled it towards the goal right off the post. It was good stuff. He's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
So good stuff from USA Soccer last night. Good environment here in Nashville. And what a weekend it was in college football. We've got a lot to get to with college football today. We'll get into the Vanderbilt debacle coming up a little bit later here in the show, a little bit later this hour, right around 6:30. We'll get a little bit deeper into the Vanderbilt Commodores. But let's just start with some of the major matchups in college football, including last night, Joe Rexrode. You were close. A lot of people hating on your Florida State take over the weekend, but you were close. What a game it was last night between Notre Dame and Florida State.
Well, what was the line on that?
7.5.
Yeah, so I was right. And David Ubben, if you're listening right now.
But you said they would win.
Did I say they'd win?
Yeah, you would.
Yeah. Okay, well, fine. But still, David Ubben, who's not listening right now, probably. But if he is, I hope you're listening, David. And, you told me that there was no chance that they could hang with Notre Dame. That was a great game. That was like, there were a lot of great games this weekend, but I had to stay up. I had to stay up last night, and I was not going to stay up. And then I said, no, I have to stay up, and it was worth it. Mackenzie Milton comes off the bench and leads a TD drive, goes 4 for 4. Anybody who knows Mackenzie Milton's story, like he should not be playing football.
Yep.
He's been called a medical miracle. The Mayo Clinic doctors were like, hey, man, if you can ever walk again, that's a huge W. And he not only was playing last night, he's like running around like he used to at Central Florida. It was incredible, and it should have been it should have been a Florida State win when he comes into the game. But Mike Norvell iced his own kicker in overtime. I said it before. I said he is icing his own kicker right now. It was a replay. It was kind of like a tuck rule play, and his kicker, who got him to overtime, nailed like the 48-yarder that would have taken it. They were the first. They got the ball first in overtime, and Mike Norvell challenged the play because Milton fumbled, but they called it incompletion. But in the meantime, his kicker's standing out there for 10 minutes, a freshman. And I'm like, he just iced the guy. So they move him up to like a 37-yarder. He hooks it, and then Notre Dame gets a field goal to win. But great football game. It was 38-20 Notre Dame. Yeah. And Milton, then their starting quarterback gets hurt. Milton comes in. That was awesome. And, obviously just this whole weekend too, it looked like college football. You had the place was packed last night. You had the Wisconsin jump around going on. I mean,
it's awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff.
The Wisconsin jump around. It was funny. You tweeted out on Saturday your memories, I guess, of the press box shaking.
I hate it
at Camp Randall.
I hate it.
And then somebody tweeted out a video, and the press box was literally shaking.
No, you sway. Yeah. I mean, people. I have a little bit of a fear of heights anyway. But it's, maybe terror. I tweeted that it's terror. It's not terror, but it's a high level of discomfort.
I could see where it would be.
It's cool. I like watching it on TV, though.
Sure.
It's cool on TV.
When you feel like press box may fall, not quite as cool.
The brats in that press box are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Almost make up for it, but yeah.
What a game that was. 16-10. James Franklin, they get it done. I will say, and I watched a lot of that game, the first half, quite frankly, was brutal. It was not fun to watch. Second half, even though it was still low scoring, was a lot better. That was a really good football game in the second half between Penn State and Wisconsin. And in the end, Penn State edges them out 16-10.
Well, and also, if you're a Wisconsin fan, you've got Graham Mertz out there.
Yep.
And then last night you got Jack Cohn out there for Notre Dame.
That is correct.
You're not liking the contrast of those two guys. Whew.
I've got a lot of Wisconsin friends of mine. Many upset at Graham Mertz over the weekend.
Yeah.
Very upset.
He's got 5 on it.
Yes, he does. Didn't look like it over the weekend. There were some passes in that game, even some that he caught that, Ferguson, the tight end at Wisconsin, is a heck of a player. And he had to make 2 or 3 just unbelievable catches. Otherwise, that stat line looks even worse for Graham Mertz.
Yeah, that was, I will say, for what it was, there were some low-scoring, huge games. We haven't talked about the big game of the weekend yet, which was very low-scoring. but it was still entertaining. And honestly, I was totally entertained by Georgia Clemson too.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more to Georgia Clemson coming up here in just a few minutes. The game of the week in college football. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Iowa just crushes Indiana over the weekend, 34-6. I took Indiana in that game, and then Iowa came out and just absolutely destroyed them. Did not see that one coming, Joe Rexrode.
No, 2 pick sixes. I mean, one is like bounces off a guy and all that, so a little bit of bad luck. But, I mean, hey, that was an awfully impressive defensive performance. And, yeah, Indiana may be a little bit overhyped. I mean, Michael Penix, who has been very good.
Yep.
He throws 3 picks. He's 14 for 31. I'll tell you what, Phil Parker, Iowa's D coordinator, is one of those he's been doing it for so long at that place, and pretty darn good, pretty solid program. I mean, they're up and down. A lot of times they kind of go as their quarterback goes, but when they get rolling on D in that stadium, it's something to watch. I did not see that one coming. I thought that was going to be a really good game.
And then one of the most intriguing games that we knew coming into the weekend could be really interesting, and it ended up being very interesting. UCLA and LSU. UCLA, they get it done, 38-27. That is the second consecutive season LSU begins play 0-1, and lots of uneasy fans right now with the LSU Tigers after the way last season went down, and now starting off losing to, albeit a very good UCLA team, but still when you look at it at the time, an unranked UCLA team on the road. People are not very happy in LSU land right now.
No, and the thing that I think is surprising is that they really got physically handled in that game. And that just shouldn't happen. Looking at what LSU has, first of all, Chip Kelly. I've wondered, what is Chip Kelly now? Now that he, schematically he was an innovator, but I mean, can he come in now at this time period and bring back a program? It's an impressive start for him on that front. But yeah, Coach O, man, he had a year with obviously an incredible quarterback, but also the coordinators were so important for him. And I don't know, man. That's a very tough start. I thought there was a chance they could lose that game. Thought it would be a good game, but they got handled.
Yeah, they did. And it's going to be interesting now because, there are a lot of people high on LSU this year coming in. And look, it's one game. They've got time to rebound here, but it's not been trending very well for LSU football since the national title run. Didn't go well for them last year. And Coach O could be starting to feel some pressure a little bit down there in Baton Rouge. Did you see him before the game, the interaction between him and the UCLA fan as he's walking into the stadium? It was amazing. He's walking down into the stadium, and somebody is, I guess, yelling at him from the loading dock from a UCLA fan, and he just Coach O looks at him, tells him to bring his expletive on in his little sissy blue shirt. I'll find the video for you during the break.
He's strutting
awesome.
in, and he just says that with just no motion, like, I got this.
Yeah. Turns out he didn't have it.
He's also a USC guy, so he already has a built-in dislike for UCLA.
There's no question about that.
Okay, I got to find that one. And we're going to put some respect on Virginia Tech's name today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hokies, 17-10, down go the Tar Heels. Sam Howell.
Didn't look great.
Some people talk about Sam Howell's a number 1 pick. He is a talented guy.
Yeah.
Talented guy. 3 picks, though. 3 picks against the Hokies, the mighty Hokies. So maybe Justin Fuentes, also a guy kind of, people aren't sure. Maybe he's got something this year.
A pretty cool environment on Friday at Virginia Tech as well. Little Inner Sandman coming into the building. I missed that. I don't really care much about Virginia Tech football, but that's quite the entrance in college football.
Inner Sandman is, yes, absolutely. And, Wes Rucker tweeted this out. I agree with him. I think Virginia Tech and Tennessee should hook up regularly. That should be just
go to Bristol every time,
but not in Bristol.
Okay,
where they run out of water before the game starts and everyone's had 17 beers and then you're sitting like 200 yards from the field. Other than that, it was perfect.
Other than that, it was a really good time out in Bristol. We'll continue the discussion on college football when we come back, including some elite teams, quote unquote, in action over the weekend. We'll dive into the Alabama game, the Georgia-Clemson game, all that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. We'll be right back here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Congratulations to intern Will, who was married over the weekend. So not going to see intern Will this week. He'll be back next week.
Well, I thought about intern Will when it was who the heck did they play? It was 7-all.
Nebraska. It was Fordham.
Yeah, no, it was like well, it was 7-all, and I didn't watch a second night game, but it was like 7-all. I think in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And Mitch Sherman, who covers the Huskers for the Athletic, he had a tweet that was like, well, basically it's about even up on the line of scrimmage and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? But then the game got blown open. All was well. You know, the Cornhuskers. I think a lot of Cornhuskers fans probably at that wedding didn't have to freak out. So, congratulations, Will. Got a big dub. Got married. Enjoy.
It's a good weekend for Will. So he'll be back with us next week here on the program. Some elite teams, quote unquote, in action over the weekend. Joe Rexrode, and we'll get to the Clemson-Georgia game coming up here in just a second. Break down Alabama as well. Oklahoma struggled a little bit over the weekend. Oklahoma and Tulane, 40-35, the final score for Lincoln Riley and company, the number 2 team in the country A little hairy at the end of that game for Oklahoma on Saturday.
Oh, it did. I mean, Tulane's driving. Their QB, that Pratt kid, was better than Spencer Rattler, who I just have all these. I feel like this quarterback crop, it's very early, but this is not Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. I don't think
it is not.
I don't see those kinds of players. Spencer Rattler, to me, he's just he's talented, but he seems like a guy who really benefits from what's around him. Of course, they came out offensively and eventually got it done. Defensively, Oklahoma, it just looks like some good Big 12 football there.
Not quite have that SEC defense yet.
Yeah, you might want to shore that up here for a few years from now. But they escaped.
They did escape. Iowa State escapes as well. Northern Iowa gave them a game at home, so wasn't an overly great day for the Big 12 on Saturday. Even some of the top teams in the league struggled a little bit in the top 10. Well, not a great day for Matt Campbell and company either.
Yeah, but Northern Iowa's legit.
They're pretty good.
I mean, that's but Iowa State, Iowa is going to be. That's a heck of. I think that's this week, right? That is.
Yeah.
That's probably the most interesting or high stakes Iowa State Iowa game I can remember. Yeah, they play every year, but that's going to be a big one.
And then perhaps the most ridiculous point spread that I think I've ever seen, and we talked about it heading into the weekend. Alabama was favored by 18.5 coming into this game, which you and I looked at each other on Friday and said, are we missing something? I mean, who in the world thinks that Miami's going to be able to keep this close? And the final score was 44-13. It was not as close as that. No. Alabama totally mopped the floor with Miami on Saturday. It was not close.
No, it was a name-your-score game. And, no, I don't know why. One, why the line was like that. But two, why anyone agrees to play Alabama in these. Saban every year plays a neutral site game against a good opponent, and every year they just annihilate that opponent. I mean, look, you're gonna get that payday. I get it, but man, this was I never understood the line. And see, the thing about Alabama is they're gonna figure it out with Bryce Young and everything, and I thought he looked really good. But defensively, they have actually an experienced defense coming back, which they haven't had for a while. And that defense, Georgia's defense, I mean Clemson's defense too, big time, just elite defenses.
Well, and Henry To'oTo'o, part of that defense. Now he did leave the game on Saturday with an injury. Now the first couple of drives, I'm sitting there watching that Alabama defense. They've got this great pass rush. They've got all these experienced linebackers anyway, and then you see number 10 flying around in there for Alabama, making some plays left and right. Looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Until he got hurt.
Yeah, thank goodness Nick Saban caught a break
yes.
and was able to grab To'oTo'o, What would he have done otherwise? But yeah, if you want to know how good he is, he's standing out even on that defense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't heard on his injury.
I haven't heard either.
Hopefully it's not bad.
What do you think of Bryce Young taking over quarterback? Obviously, some big shoes to fill. Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa to Mac Jones. Now Bryce Young. The stat line, very impressive. 27 of 38, 344 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, QBR of 94.2. Pretty good debut for Bryce Young as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, no, he looked good. I mean, Jameson Williams has 4 for 126, and I just thought he looked very poised. I think he's earned his NIL money.
I think so.
He's on his way. He's on his way anyway to earn it. No one's going to want to drop him. No. I think he's going to have a pretty good year.
I think he is too. That Alabama offense. Look, they're still got some things that they're going to have to figure out in terms of the roles that people are going to play. John Mechie has been coming off an injury in camp. 6 catches. It's a touching game. Still very much a thing for Alabama. And the big takeaway for me over the weekend, and we're going to get to Clemson and Georgia here in just a couple of seconds, but the big takeaway that I had over the weekend, it still looks like it's Alabama and then everybody else to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a huge win for Georgia.
It is.
But it's also a huge win without an offensive touchdown. It's hard because I totally get anyone saying it looks like it's Alabama and everybody else, and it probably is. But let's remember, Georgia and Clemson are elite rosters for sure going against each other. And that game may not have been, we're not looking for too many 10-3 games. But I'll tell you what, I was entertained, especially I was in the Vanderbilt press box, so I'm like, I'm going to watch this game here on my phone. But I do like Georgia's D against Alabama would be very fun because that is a legit D, and maybe as good or better than Alabama, I think. And Alabama is young in key spots offensively, but you're probably right. It's probably Alabama, for the win. And Clemson, again, they didn't look great offensively, but they looked great defensively. Yeah. Now that was a big time matchup. I mean, just how often do you expect top teams to play a game like that? But
well, to me, it was much more important to me, and you may disagree with this, but for Georgia to win that game because, look, Clemson, they still play in the ACC, and I think they're going to be fine the rest of their schedule, and they'll probably run the table the rest of their schedule and still end up making the college football playoff. Georgia, if you lose that game to Clemson, even though you could say, all right, well, we lost to the number 3 team in the nation. I mean, that's a loss where at some point down the line here, whether it's Florida or if you get to the SEC title game and it's A&M or Alabama or whoever it is, like I felt like if you were going to make the college football playoff, you had to win that game if you were Georgia. And to their credit, they did. I mean, look, it was not the most aesthetically pleasing game to watch. I enjoyed a battle of two good defenses. And like you said, these are two of probably the 3 best defenses in all of college football. And you saw that on Saturday night. But DJ Uiagalelei, I mean, he had 0 time. Every time he dropped back, Georgia was in the backfield. It was impressive to watch their pass rush.
Yeah, and the pick six was just such a great play.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, Georgia is going to run the table from here. It's a huge upset. Their schedule is pretty soft.
Yeah.
I mean, the best team they play the rest of the way is Florida. They're still doing Jacksonville, right?
Oh, yeah.
Still doing Jacksonville. I mean, that's it. So they should run it from here. So should Clemson. And it's also just, psychologically, Georgia is sort of viewed like Clemson was a few years ago. Can you get over the hump? So I think it's big for that. It's not great for JT Daniels. I wasn't that impressed with him. But look, Clemson is great on D too. I do agree with you. The offensive line, like the Clemson offensive line was overwhelmed way more than the Georgia offensive line was. That Georgia front is ridiculous. So I need a Georgia-Bama game this year, one way or the other. I need that game to happen.
Oh, you're off to a good start.
Yeah.
For that Georgia-Bama game.
Feeling all right about the chances.
Feeling okay about that so far over the weekend. An impressive weekend for Alabama, impressive weekend for the Georgia Bulldogs as well. I guess really the only team that got it squandered a little bit. By the way, the Crazy Pirate. We hadn't talked about this yet, but what a comeback. Mississippi State. They end up getting it done 35-34 over the weekend when it looked like they could be in a huge amount of trouble. I was sitting there.
They were getting rolled.
They were getting rolled in that game by Louisiana Tech. It was at one point 34-14 in favor of Louisiana Tech, and then Mississippi State comes back and gets it done at the end. So largely a very good weekend for the SEC with the exception of the LSU game against UCLA and with the exception of the Vanderbilt game as well. Joe Rexrode was there and was in person for the Vanderbilt game against East Tennessee State over the weekend. We've got a lot to get to on that front coming up next. We'll welcome your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank. Now with 2 locations in Murfreesboro. You can visit our brand new Murfreesboro location at 2019 Memorial Boulevard. Volunteer State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Welcome back in. Talking college football, and we've gotten to the majority of the SEC, but here locally, not a great weekend for the Vanderbilt Commodores on Saturday night. East Tennessee State comes in and not only wins, Joe Rexrode, but really dominates that game. 23-3, the final. It could have literally been worse if not for a taunting penalty by ETSU on an interception as well. We've got a lot to get to with this game. Let's just kind of start with you. You were in the house. You were there for Vanderbilt taking on ETSU, game 1 of the Clark Lee era. I guess your reaction to the game playing out the way that it did, and what was the most surprising part of that to you, other than, of course, the obvious in the final score?
Well, the most surprising thing to me was East Tennessee State is a solid FCS program. Not, I think 6 FCS teams won over the weekend, but some of them are, and then you have like the Northern Iowa, who always is good, or the North Dakota State, always is good. For the most part, like Holy Cross beat UConn. I mean, that's just UConn. Actually, I think is still worse than Vanderbilt. So we'll see in a couple weeks, or I guess in about 4 weeks. But the most surprising thing to me was just that they got beat up front. I mean, as the game wore on, and Vanderbilt early on, drove the football, got points on the board, had a couple, just smothered ETSU's offense. You're like, okay, that looks like about what I thought it would look like. And then it was interesting, Vanderbilt switched quarterbacks and went with Mike Wright, as Clark Lee said they would, and he actually had a really nice drive. It stalled. They had just hit a 53-yard field goal. He opted against a 54. They punted to net gain 20 yards. You punt in the end zone, which is like, man. And then the next play is like a 43-yard bomb that connects, and then from the rest of the game from that point, it was a mismatch. And I think this is a great lesson on preseason practice, because Vanderbilt's defense was flying around and active, but they were kicking the butt of a very bad offensive line. And obviously that's always the discussion. Okay, if this is good, then how bad is this, or whatever, right? But I mean, based on that game, Vanderbilt's offensive line is a real problem. And I will say, I knew that was kind of the case. Like, you knew it had to be the case, right? I think probably the biggest surprise is like the defense allowing East Tennessee State to just run at will on them. They ran for like 190 yards in that game. That would be the most surprising thing to me, because I really thought if they get injuries on D this year, they're in trouble. They don't have a lot of depth. But they've got some good players, some guys who have played some pretty good defense for them. And Clark Lee's a defensive coach. And Jesse Minter's in from the Ravens. And the fact that ETSU did what it did offensively was the biggest surprise. And yet I'm saying that after a game that Vanderbilt scores 3 points against ETSU. So, I mean, you can, I guess, pick either side. It's just that, the offensive line struggles are real. Now, I also still think that Vanderbilt's good at quarterback and good at receiver. So, again, how did you end up with 3 points? It was just an all-around just big poop in the punch bowl, man.
It was not good.
It was just bad.
It was bad. And, look, Ken Seals, we talked on Friday about how excited we were to see this Vanderbilt offense play in terms of Ken Seals and what he brings to the table. But it was not a good game for that offense. You brought up the offensive line, and certainly that's a part of it. But Ken Seals, Mike Wright, it did not go well for them on Saturday. And Ken Seals with a couple of turnovers in the game. The pick six that got called back for the taunting penalty. Ken Seals taking the drop back and the ball just falling out of his hands, and the fumble on that play. I mean, it was a comedy of errors at times for that Vanderbilt offense. And it kind of, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, we saw this a lot in the immediate aftermath and the reaction of social media, it leaves you scratching your head a little bit and saying to yourself, all right, look, we knew this season could be rough, but if you're getting beat by 20 points by an FCS team to open up the season, how rough is this going to be? And Clark Lee, after the game, several times made it a point to kind of say, look, this is just kind of an illustration of where they are right now as a program, and brought that up many times in the post-game interview. Look, I hear what he's saying, and we knew that he had a heck of a job to do coming in here. There's no excuse ever for Vanderbilt to lose to East Tennessee State. There's just not. I don't buy that this is just where Vanderbilt is, that they are so bad that they should be losing to East Tennessee State.
Right. I mean, they were 0-9 last year. They're bad. But again, that's 0-9 in an SEC schedule. I mean, 2 years ago, so the last Vanderbilt win was November of 19. So a different team and a different East Tennessee State team, but you can't tell me they're worlds different. And Vanderbilt won that game 38-0. So that was a bad Vanderbilt team, a bad Vanderbilt season. That season put Derek Mason on the hot seat, and he beat East Tennessee State 38-0. So there you go. I mean, it's still – I totally agree. There's no excuse. So on this particular night, I can't – it's hard to find positives because I thought both quarterbacks, I still believe they're good. I mean, I think we saw enough from them last season to think that. But it was not good. Now, Mike Wright had a touchdown pass that might have changed the game to Chris Pierce and a great drive, and he was a big spark. Gets called back for an ineligible man downfield. One of the linemen was downfield, and basically that was it. But Mike Wright gave him a spark. He had some good moments. And I think the whole QB thing is another discussion with Vanderbilt because if your offensive line's this bad, you might have to go with him because Ken Seals if Ken Seals is having to dodge and duck on the third step of his drop back, what do you expect the guy to do? At least with Mike Wright, you can neutralize some of that. But anyway, to your point, you're 100% right. It's just terrible. Now, I've got Vanderbilt fans asking me about, you think they could fire him this year? No. My God. I understand how bad this was.
No.
I mean, I understand how bad it was bad, and it could be bad this year. I mean, I wrote, my comment after the game, like, this team could go 0-12. This team, I mean, I feel like way overshot things by picking them to go 4-8. But believe me, the 4-8 included a win over East Tennessee State.
Yes, it did.
I mean, Colorado State is terrible. They're playing them this week. But that's a big game just to show that they can figure things out and look like a football team in a short period of time. They got UConn, like I said.
Speaking of terrible.
I mean, lost 45-0 to Fresno State and then lost 38-28 at home to Holy Cross. Not a noted FCS power, Holy Cross. But if Vanderbilt plays like that, they could lose to both of them and certainly to everybody in the SEC. So you get to the end of that, if that's what it's like, and there's going to be people very unhappy. And they should be unhappy right now. I mean, I was very impressed with so much of the preseason and everything since Clark Lee was hired, including the sights from practice. I mean, you contrast the practices of this team with some Derek Mason practices. I was impressed. And there's a reality to what this team is for sure. But still, there's no excuse to play that poorly.
No excuse whatsoever. And, it's one of those things where, I look at it and Vanderbilt fans are excited about this new era with Clark Lee. And by the way, I told you yesterday, the uniforms, they looked outstanding for Vanderbilt.
They did. Yeah,
really good-looking uniforms on Saturday night. But, Clark Lee and Barton Simmons, we've had them both on the show, and they've talked so much about trying to generate positive momentum, obviously on the recruiting front, and that's going to be important as they move forward here, but also just with the fan base and trying to get the fan base excited and get something to be, going well for a Vanderbilt fan and to give them a reason to want to show up to the games and all these different things that they've talked about since they took over the job here. Not a good start on that front of trying to generate fan excitement with this group.
Right, and it's funny because I went into that game kind of thinking I might write about that because I was like, well, the game's not going to be interesting. Vanderbilt's going to win by a lot. So I'll write about the fan because they have done a lot of things that I think are good things around the stadium. They have the sort of premium seating in that end zone now. That was about half full. The stadium was about half full. which, isn't great. But honestly, again, at this point, given where this program has been, given the other options in this city, you gotta do something to get people out there. I think official attendance was 22,000. I think it was probably about 17,000 in there. And it's a long road back to get that going. But the bottom line is, what is your product? Do you have a product to sell? And this is, a game like this is going to hurt you in any way. It's going to. A lot of people are just like, okay, well, call me in a couple years if they're decent.
Yep.
And on recruiting, this can't help you on the recruiting trail. You're talking about, and look, they're talking about winning SEC championships. And hey, you know what? Any coach takes over a program, you should talk about all that stuff. But this just was not a good display at all. And it's going to be very interesting, especially I think this week in a winnable game, in theory, on the road, night. I think it's like a 9 p.m. kick Nashville time. Can you get this team to respond?
Yeah, that's going to be the question. And we'll continue to talk about the Vanderbilt loss to East Tennessee State when we come back. Vandy fans, let's take your thoughts on our text line and our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Your reaction to the Vanderbilt loss to ETSU. We'll get to that coming up next. And speaking of Vanderbilt, do you want to win a pair of tickets to see Stanford versus Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt Stadium on Saturday, September the 18th? Well, if you do, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the 1025 The Game YouTube page, and you'll enter to win your way into the game. One winner will be chosen on Monday, September the 13th. We'll be right back here, Robby and Rexrode, on ESPN 1025 The Game.
maybe tell you about how far you may have to go with this rebuild and what the journey may look like in order to get there?
Well, this is a tough result to stomach. I mean, but listen, I didn't sign up for this, or we as coaches and as players, we understand that part of being in the arena competition is, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. There are going to be good results and there are going to be bad results, and we have to make the choice to win the response. That's as simple as it is. Where does it tell me where we are in the rebuild? Hey, look, we have a long way to go. But I mean, I knew that heading into the season. We can cover that ground quickly if we set our intention to learning from this, not letting this define us. We can be disappointed, but let's not be defeated. Let's understand that this is game 1 of 12 scheduled games this season. And so let's use it as an opportunity to fuel us forward, and maybe a moment that expedites our progress towards the program that we know we can build here. And so this has always been about the vision for the future at Vanderbilt. It's never been about just playing East Tennessee State on September 4th. This is about how we build this program to sustain success over time. And this can be a critical learning moment for everyone involved as we move forward.
That was Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee after a 23-3 loss for Vanderbilt against East Tennessee State on Saturday night at Vanderbilt Stadium. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Taking your thoughts on Vanderbilt's loss to ETSU on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Pat from Donaldson. Pat, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Morning, guys. I'm confined at home right now due to a bad foot. Probably the first home opener I've missed in 40 years. One thing I was disappointed about, I turned on your station and I got the MTSU game clear as a bell. I picked up Memphis State on AM. I picked up the Braves game. I picked up 3 or 4 sporting events as clear as a bell. The Vandy feed on the radio, it sounded like Kevin Ingram sounded like Vern Lundquist with 3 bags over his head. It was all static. So I don't know how bad they even want you to listen to the game if you can't come to the game, but I just thought that this performance was just unbelievable. This reminded me of the Derek Mason first game 7 years ago, when the game on a Thursday night didn't get started until about 10:30 because of storms that had moved in the area, and then didn't get over till 1:30, and then Temple won by 30 points. There's no excuse. I don't care how bad you are. I don't care how bad the culture is. I don't care. There's no way you lose by 20 points to ETSU in your home opener. I mean, I feel bad. I was worried. When I called in, I was going to say, we'll accept Clark's resignation, but we got to give him more than one game. But I hope he's got him out there right now running the steps, because this is just totally unacceptable. I've been a Vandy fan for 40 years. I'm always loyal. I stick by him. I say, win, lose, or draw, they're my team. I remember 40 years ago when Citadel came in here and a guy named Stump Mitchell, Citadel beat them 40 years ago, and that was an FCS team. There's just no excuse for this. No excuse whatsoever.
Hey, thanks for the call, Pat. We appreciate it. And, to Pat's point there, a lot of people on Twitter after that game had flashbacks to that Temple Owl game 7 years ago in Derek Mason's first game, where Temple just came in here and absolutely destroyed Vanderbilt on a Thursday night game where, as Pat mentioned, there are some lightning delays. Game didn't start till like 10 o'clock at night. But that was a rough one. Given the opponent, at least Temple is a FBS program.
Yeah, that was Matt Rule.
That was pretty good coach.
He had that program kind of moving in a good direction.
This, to me, is worse, losing to ETSU this way.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also crazy, by the way, that Jared Folks, the starting linebacker for ETSU, was on that Temple team.
Great line by you in your story, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah,
check that out at theathletic.com.
All he does is find more eligibility and ruin coaching debuts. He's about out of eligibility.
He is about out of eligibility. Sure.
Yeah, that gave me a little bit of joy Saturday night as I wrote about this game. Yeah, it really is amazing. An 8th-year senior,
Don't run across too many of those.
You don't. Like Tommy Boy.
College forever.
Yeah. But no, I would agree. This is worse, right? For sure. Now, that was a blowout, and again, that was like, Mason coming in off Franklin and saying, okay, let's take it to the next step. And the recruiting class was supposed to be good. Like the talent on the roster was supposed to be pretty good. So it's very different in terms of what you took over. Mason took over a program that had been on almost a stunning 3-year run, 24 wins in 3 years, and had almost gotten a top 25 class just outside it. So it's like, oh, well, here you go. You're taking this over. What can you do? Can you take it to a higher level? And then that happens. Now this is Clark Lee taking over Derek Mason's program that went 0-9. And there are no real expectations for this team to do anything very good, but it's still ETSU. ETSU is a solid team. Randy Sanders has done a nice job, but it's not like this is a Southern Conference power. They're solid in the Southern Conference.
They are.
So I would agree. Ultimately, this is worse. I think it's just the expectation level for the programs actually was way different then versus now. That's probably why some might still look back and think that was worse.
Well, I think, you could feel Pat's frustration in his call there. And, look, that's where this Vanderbilt fan base is. You know this. We talked about this at the end of last year. There's a whole lot of apathy with this Vanderbilt football program, and you still have your diehards that are going to watch every week, and they're going to be there at the games when they can be, but there's not very many diehards anymore of Vanderbilt football. You've got to find a way to get some of your more casual Vanderbilt fans back in there, and for people like Pat who have been watching this program for a long time, you're trying to find some way and some light at the end of the tunnel. And look, to his point, and I saw this Saturday night, and I'm not surprised by it because it's the age we live in. The Clark Lee stuff, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to get fired after this year. He shouldn't get fired after this year. Quite frankly, he shouldn't be fired after the next 3 years. Just let him go. Let him try to build a program here. So I know if this continues to go this way this year and they don't put together some wins and they end up 1-11 or 0-12, whatever the case may be, you're going to hear a lot of that from your Vanderbilt fans because they are so fed up with this year after year. But we knew that it was going to be a rough build for Clark Lee. We didn't quite anticipate it being on this rough so far, but you still have to give him some time to see if he can build this program. It's going to be a multi-year process trying to build this program.
Yeah, Pat had a comment there. I hope he's running the players right now, which to me would suggest like they didn't try, they didn't have the right. I tell you what, I'd say it'd be better for him to have a 4 a.m. meeting with his coaches today. So, some of these players are just they aren't good enough.
Yeah,
that's just reality. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't good enough to beat ETSU. I think they are good enough to beat ETSU, but especially offensively, I did not like the plan. I did not like how they were trying to attack ETSU. I don't think they adjusted. I don't know how many low percentage fades you're going to throw on 3rd and 4, but you got to have. And some of that's quarterback decision-making, but I didn't like that in particular from the staff. And the quarterback thing is going to be really interesting here. Ken Seals is a better passer. Mike Wright misses some passes that you can't miss.
Yeah.
Mike Wright is probably the number one guy you want to have the ball in his hands on that team. And if your offensive line is this bad, that's going to be really interesting. And now, of course, you're also roster management right now. That's always the case with the quarterback situation.
Yep.
So you could end up ticking both of them off. In the midst of any sort of multi QB thing, you can risk making everybody mad, especially if you're losing and it's all negative again. That's the thing. You're trying to change the culture,
right?
But you're trying to have some positivity. Clark Lee could have gone 3-9 this year, and people still could have felt good about things. Because, you took care of a couple games where you're supposed to, and you're competitive in some of the other games, and you show some progress on the field. But, the That one, you get 12 days a year when we see what your work is yielding.
Yep.
That one was really bad.
I keep going back to the offensive line part of this. I mean, I think what really illustrates it, and I realize the college numbers are a little bit different here because they factor in, the sack numbers when it comes to the total rushing yards too. But 31 attempts, 85 yards, 2.7 per carry against ETSU. I mean, that just kind of sums it up. 2.7 a carry against ETSU.
Yeah, and, Raymond Davis from Temple, I thought there were a few runs that he just almost got out of there, but, someone corralled him. I actually think Patrick Smith, the freshman, looked promising. But, yeah, of course that's a comment on the offensive line. Between that and the pressure the quarterbacks were constantly under and the pre-snap penalties, I mean, it's just you go down the list, it's hard to find anything good. Meanwhile, I mean, ETSU, Vanderbilt is getting no push. And that's another – I was so surprised with the way some of those guys have played in the preseason. Again, against that offensive line. But still, you're like, okay, against ETSU, surely they will be disruptive and make plays. And no.
When we come back, it is finally week 1 for the Tennessee Titans. The Arizona Cardinals coming into town later this week. We'll start to look ahead to what week 1 entails for the Tennessee Titans when we come back. Welcome your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Sponsored by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts, as always, on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, we finally made it. Week 1 of the NFL season. It feels like it's taken forever to get to this point. We had a beautiful display of college football over the weekend. It was wonderful to behold, wonderful to watch. And now the NFL beginning this week, of course, on Thursday night when the reigning Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Dallas Cowboys. And then week 1 coming up this weekend here in Nashville, the Titans hosting the Arizona Cardinals coming up on Sunday. Going to be a wonderful week, Joe Rexrode. Week 1, one of my favorite weeks of the year on the sporting calendar in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just like even tonight we get another college game, and then you got 2 days, and then it's back to and we get the NFL opener. But even on Wednesday night, we got the fantasy draft for us. So
that's right.
No, wait. By the way, what's the name of the league is?
Oh, I just named it the Robby and Rexrode League.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we want creative individual names, team names.
For your team names.
There you go. Yes.
I still got to come up with my team name.
Yeah, me too. So it's This last week was hard to top because it's the full college football slate, but now you get that with the NFL.
Yeah.
It's almost too good.
Going to have a return of Pigskin Pick'em coming up on Friday as well. So looking forward to that competition. We got roasted last year by Ryan Porth / Marquise Munson. So Joe Rexrode, it's on us this year to see if we can have a better response. Really, it's on me because you've had better responses in a lot of the competitions that we've done. I have sucked pretty badly at all of them.
You beat me in Pigskin Pick'em, didn't you?
I
last
did,
year?
but
so
it still didn't win.
Yeah.
So
well, now Michelle sees if she can maintain the tradition.
that's right.
From the other room.
Listen,
I'm
I'm very competitive. You know, Nashville SC picked a click. We started off strong, and I've just been on a slow decline. But Pigskin Pick'em. This is a new game, and I'm ready to beat you all.
Be a lot of Kentucky Wildcats picks. I'm expecting.
Catter Day, we love it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Every time you can have a Catter Day, it's a good day on the show. No question about that.
They're going to be good.
Yeah, looks like they could be pretty good.
Thank you,
out there.
Joe.
I mean, I'm calling it like it is.
Yeah, looks like
Right?
they could be
Kentucky being able to throw the forward pass. You know,
amazing development up there.
everything else has been pretty good.
That's right. Some good news for the Titans over the weekend. Ryan Tannehill off of the COVID-19 list. Jeremy McNichols as well. So Tannehill is back. Should be a full participant in practice this week for the Titans. And obviously, Joe, very good to get your starting quarterback back in the fold this week in game preparation as you look ahead to the Titans and the Cardinals. Big deal for Tannehill to be back out there.
Yep, and nothing new from anyone yesterday. There were I don't think there was any Titans transaction yesterday, which is rare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every day there's something. But Tannehill's back out there. Next up would be obviously, well, you have Jeff Swaim, and you also have the the two starting offensive linemen who that should happen this week. And then of course you're also hoping to not have anyone added because of course anyone added now is going to miss the opener. So the full week of practice, well, I'll be out there today. Not that we'll get to see a ton, but we'll get to see who's out there, who's actually on the field today for the game week practice. And it's a pretty great matchup, actually.
Yeah, it is. And the first time we'll see this new look Titans offense in a real game coming up. Todd Downing with his first game as Titans offensive coordinator. Hopefully Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill all on the field at the same time. I'm interested this week, and obviously we're not going to know this based on the limited access that you're going to have to practice now, but how much work can Julio Jones, Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown get in this week? Obviously, from an ideal standpoint, training camp didn't go that way for the Titans where they're all in the field at the same time very much. How much work can they get put in this week? And as you look ahead to the game coming up on Sunday, with Julio Jones not really playing during the preseason and throughout training camp, how much of a factor can he be in week one? How much of the factor will the Titans try to make him in week one? This is going to be, I think, one of the really interesting parts of this game coming up against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I imagine a big factor unless something – I mean, if he's out there as he was last week, just taking part in everything and the drills and all that. Now you have Tannehill back out there, and, of course, they lost that week, which would have been a big chemistry build week. But I would think that maybe some extra throwing on top of practice might be part of this too. And, look, I expect Julio Jones to get targeted a lot. A.J. Brown to get targeted a lot. It's just so different from what they've been doing, obviously, because they've been out there much. And then the next question for me is how does it fall in right behind them now that, Marcus Johnson, really tough that he's on the IR. Tough for him because he was really working his way toward a really nice opportunity. Now he could be out there in 3 weeks and step in and make an impact. But is Josh Reynolds ready? Is Chester Rogers the guy? Is Nick Westbrook-Akina going to be out there in some situations catching passes? It's a great spot to be in. If Julio and AJ are full go, it's a great gig to be that next receiver, the 3 wide sets.
So what do you think the running back situation looks like on Sunday? Obviously, with Derrick Henry, we know getting most of the snaps and most, obviously, of the carries as well. In obvious passing down situations when Derrick Henry's not on the field, what do you think the running back situation looks like for the Titans this week?
Well, it's going to be McNichols. I mean, I think Vrabel said that last week. They're not going to – I think they like Sargent. And, we'll see when Darrington Evans comes off IR, presumably if he comes off after the 3-week mark, who sits down. Now, I could see it being Jeremy McNichols, and I could see Sargent making the team. I don't know. But for now, I mean, it's definitely going to be McNichols. They know he can do it. They trust him. Sargent has been very impressive as a rookie, but you've had a lot of Sundays now with Jeremy McNichols in that role, and there's got to be a higher comfort level. I totally understand. Now, I'm very intrigued when Evans comes back what that looks like. But, yeah, you're going to see Jeremy McNichols on the field Sunday in third down situations, unless you see Derrick Henry here and there a little bit more, which I've always been in favor of.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing you've got to keep an eye on this week, if you're a Titans fan or a fan of any team throughout the league, is what do the COVID-19 tests look like? And Chris Mortensen put this out this morning from ESPN, says, quote, talked or texted with a number of NFL coaches / execs who are nervous about COVID-19 testing today, with the number of players who visited their former college teams opening games and social gatherings from this past weekend. And a lot of college football, or a lot of NFL players going back to their colleges this weekend. We saw Trevor Lawrence in the house watching Clemson against Georgia. It is going to be interesting to see how that goes this week. Hopefully, the most minimal amount of issues as possible, but that's the reality you're going to have to live with throughout the season this year in the NFL, where if you get a positive test this close, probably going to be out coming up.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thought by Mortensen, and totally understandable. We're seeing these full crowd scenes, and so when you see that, like if you're an NFL player or whatever, like you're Trevor Lawrence, you want to go back and see everybody go in the locker room, go out afterward. I mean, but these guys still have to live differently, as the season gets going. They have to live differently, especially the way things are being transmitted to people who are vaccinated. It's going to have to be, I don't know about full lockdown, but Bruce Arians,
yeah,
he says a lot of stuff, but
he does.
But I understand what he's saying. It's like, yeah, I don't care what the protocols are. Like, we're not doing stuff. That's kind of has to be the mindset. So yeah, I wonder if we do today get some, some bad news around the league.
I really don't want to go back to the 7:15 daily look at Tom Pelissero's Twitter feed.
I know.
I like Tom Pelissero. He's really good at what he does, but I'd like to be able to go throughout my shows without having to look at his Twitter account too much.
And I really thought that we'd be far removed from that, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, and again, I still think it's possible that stuff could get moved here and there. If everyone, if everyone is basically gets up to close to fully vaccinated, I know some teams aren't still, but then you still have these positives and stuff. I would have to think there'd have to be a little bit of flexibility that the NFL has to consider.
You would think so.
But they'll react when things happen,
yes.
as always.
That's what the NFL is very good at. I'm interested, starting on Sunday, to see what the crowd looks like at Nissan Stadium. We've talked for a long time here in this market about Titans fans showing up and filling that stadium with largely Titans fans. And obviously, like the Arizona Cardinals don't have this gigantic fan base. At least I wouldn't think so. It's going to be traveling in here. I guess we'll see coming up on Sunday. But really interesting with the hype that this team has, obviously with Julio Jones coming in as well. When you look throughout the schedule here, is this year going to be the year with everything factored in when, last year when you didn't have a chance to have a full building? Is this going to be a big year for the Titans fans have finally shown up and showed out, and this is going to be a year where more times than not, 80, 90% of that stands is going to be filled with Titans fans. Really interested to see how that goes this year starting on Sunday with this team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I think so. I don't know. I know that there's, the Titans aren't giving like specific updates on sales and things like that. I know that there's definitely been positive indications and that the Julio Jones signing was another bump.
Oh, yeah.
I would say even just looking at the crowd for the Bears preseason game, I was pretty impressed actually with that turnout, and that made me think, so when games really count, I feel like it's going to be the best it's been in a long time, but we will see. Like you said, this week is not the week where you consider, a big traveling contingent. But it's not. In some weeks, the place is going to be full because of the traveling contingent, but you want it to be full with Titans fans.
Yeah.
So this is a great test of, there's not going to be thousands of Cardinals fans in there. So can you still fill the stadium without that?
Although, could get a whole lot of Rondale Moore supporters show up on Sunday.
That's true. The West Lafayette contingent,
Make a trip
they should
down?
come down, yes, to
right.
see Rondale.
We'll continue the discussion on the Titans when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, including a deeper look at this week for Ryan Tannehill. How much pressure is Ryan Tannehill under as this season begins? We'll get into that a little bit more coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Don't miss the 2021 Middle Tennessee Highland Games and Celtic Festival Saturday, September the 11th at Percy Warner Park. A fun-filled day full of Celtic games, children's activities, Celtic music, food, Scottish and Irish dancers, local and regional vendors, and much more. Tickets are on sale now, and you can visit mid10games.com for more details. Once again, that's mid10games.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank. Visit volstatebank.com to learn more about our free Kasasa checking account, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Looking ahead to week 1 for the Tennessee Titans. The Titans taking on the Cardinals coming up this Sunday. And one of the big questions, not only for week 1, but all season long, Joe, is going to be Ryan Tannehill and how he responds to the weapons that he has on offense. Not only the weapons that he's got at his disposal, but the change going from Arthur Smith to Todd Downing as well. And Ryan Tannehill has been, in my opinion, overlooked at times since he became the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. They were talking on Good Morning Football this morning about Ryan Tannehill and how good he's been with the Titans since he took over as the starting quarterback, and flashed up those numbers that we see every now and then and the comparisons to Patrick Mahomes and all the top quarterbacks in the league. And you and I have discussed several times here on the show how I feel like Tannehill could have an outstanding year this year and probably still is not going to get the respect that he deserves throughout the league. But if things don't go well for the Titans this year and they're not as productive offensively as we think they could be and think they should be, my guess is Ryan Tannehill is probably going to get a lot of the blame for that and how that goes for the Titans this year. So with that in mind, how much pressure externally do you think Ryan Tannehill is under this year? There's always a certain amount of pressure that comes with being a starting quarterback in the NFL, especially the starting quarterback of a good team, and we know that. But externally, when you have all these expectations, all this talent at your disposal, and everybody's looking everywhere else other than you, trying to give credit to that talent, how much pressure is Ryan Tannehill under in your mind heading into this year?
Well, plenty. I mean, maybe though that continued, I guess, lack of respect, if you want to call it that, maybe that kind of counteracts it a little bit in terms of affecting him. Although it's interesting, like I said, I mean, I have seen a little bit more of like what Good Morning Football just put up there, like could he be a dark horse MVP candidate than I would have guessed.
Yep.
And I think it makes sense. I mean, the thing is, if everything comes together like the Titans hope, like they've put this together to happen, then he could have some outrageous numbers, and he could have some outrageous numbers for a very good team. Now, I guess maybe outrageous is not quite there because they are going to run the football a lot. I mean, it's not like, it's not like Mahomes. It's not like some of these teams where, it's like even their running game is swing passes to the running back.
Right.
So, like, the numbers are going to be stupid. But he could have some really big Sundays and really efficient Sundays and overall accumulate MVP range numbers for if everything goes exactly how the Titans want for a team that's one of the top teams in the AFC. How would that not be as a quarterback? How would that not be an MVP candidate? I would say it would clearly be an MVP candidate. But at the same time, I also have my doubts that he would really be a threat to win it because of what's around him. And I think to an extent that's fair because it does help you as a quarterback to have Derrick Henry. And if you are throwing to those guys and they're both healthy, you have arguably the best receiver tandem in the league. So I think it is fair to say, okay, well, who is more advantaged at QB than him?
Right, but I mean, to that same point, Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
I mean, that'll help you as well. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is throwing to the best receiver in football, in Devontae Adams. Now, do those two guys have something to do with it? Sure, obviously. But I just feel like that argument doesn't really get used for other quarterbacks in the league.
Well, except those guys, but the GOAT has had many great years with not throwing to a lot. But also those guys, well, I guess maybe it's less true with Rodgers. They have a nice running game. They haven't, like their offenses aren't built around a running back that's such a
superhuman.
Such a focal point for defenses. So, I mean, of course that helps Tannehill. It doesn't mean that people don't disrespect or overly disregard what he does, because they do. But, I mean, I think it's fair to point out, like, a lot of quarterbacks around, I don't know about, a lot would say, and a lot probably would really benefit from this exact setup.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody would love to be in this situation.
Yeah. But you also have to be good enough to take advantage of it. And Ryan Tannehill has shown that he is the last couple of years. Now, every time we start talking about Ryan Tannehill, we'll get text on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, about the playoffs, and we know that. I mean, he's got to be better in the playoffs, especially the last game he played against Baltimore. It wasn't good enough, and he's got to be better in that area. But this is a big opportunity for him. And I'm interested, too, from a stylistic standpoint with Todd Downing. I don't anticipate the offense to look that much different, but you've talked about it. I mean, I would expect the Titans to throw the ball a little bit more this year and with a little bit more regularity. I'm interested what exactly that looks like. And it's gonna vary, obviously, from a week-to-week basis, depending on how the games go. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But my guess is with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and the weapons you have at wide receiver this year, you're probably going to want to throw the ball a little bit more than they've thrown it the past couple of years. And I'm interested to see how drastic of a difference that could be with a new offensive coordinator and with the new weapons they've got on that offense.
Yeah, like I don't know if there's some stated plan like, okay, this year we're moving up to X percent, passing the ball. But, yeah, I would think that, one, limiting Derrick Henry's work a little bit, I think should be kind of a goal. And two, when you take advantage of your best players. And now you have two on the outside who are among the – I mean, Julio Jones has been arguably the best receiver many years in recent years in the NFL. We'll see if he's that good still. A.J. Brown is rising into – I don't know where he is. What is he, top 10, top 12?
In that
top
range.
8?
Yeah.
Okay, so it just makes sense to get the ball to your best players, but it's also just reacting to defense. And that's where I think Tannehill's been really good in Arthur Smith's offense, is checking into the right play and just, doing a good job of taking what's there. Being a point guard, spraying the ball around the field. And I could see a little bit more just straight drop back throwing this year just because of the personnel. But, again, our defense is going to be what they were last year, which was largely geared to stop Henry. Or do they adjust? Is it way different from week to week? Can't wait to see.
One person that's very high on Ryan Tannehill, we know this, as a friend of the show, Mike Tannenbaum has joined us many times, very high on Ryan Tannehill, and they've come out with a piece on ESPN.com, and Mike Tannenbaum believes that Tannehill will lead the league in total QBR this year. It says, quote, with star receiver Julio Jones added to an offense that already includes A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, this offense will be extraordinarily hard to defend. What do defenses take away? Tannehill has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league the past 2 seasons, and he could star again. So, Mike Tannenbaum, no disrespect to Ryan Tannehill there.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Also, as Derrick Henry will be the leading rusher in the NFL.
Well, if that's the case, it's going to be an awfully good year. And that's where Tannehill, if you want to talk about like the outside shot at the MVP, he's not going to have the huge numbers that Mahomes has, that Rodgers has. Probably not even quite where Brady will be. But if he's the most efficient, well, that's the path. And at some point, if he is, how do you not give him credit for that?
Well, I agree. And a lot of it's winning, right? Like last year, think about this time. Well, not this time, but, midway through the season last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers were 11-0. And there were people around the league talking about, should Big Ben be in the MVP conversation? And, obviously they came in here, they beat the Titans. But you watch Big Ben throw the football in that game. And, no ball went more than 7 yards past the line of scrimmage. And you're like, should he really be in the MVP conversation?
And then when it did, J.M. Brown picked it off.
That's right.
Yeah.
But winning at that position, it'll put yourself in a lot of conversations.
Yeah. But again, Ryan Tannehill's never going to escape what people thought of him for so many years in one place, and how it looks like he's come here. Oh, it's the same player, but that's how much this place can help the same player. You know, that's just how people look at it. I don't think that's exactly the right way to look at it, but it's a different situation than most quarterbacks. I mean, Big Ben has been a great quarterback in the past, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's carried that team in the past. So it's just how it is. But I actually think that you could argue it lessens the pressure a little bit on him.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I think there's definitely an argument there for sure. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, I don't have a ton to add to the conversation. I'm just here to say that I cannot wait until this Sunday. It's time to tighten up. There's a lot of anticipation for this season. I think Titans fans, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, maybe since 2009, the most anticipated Titans season, maybe?
Well, that's, yeah, and that's, someone threw that at me because I think we've kind of gone with most since, 02, 03 range more when you still had that group together, that Super Bowl group together with McNair and Eddie George and Derek Mason. Someone threw out 09 because, of course, 08 they went 13-3.
Right.
They had Chris Johnson. But I don't know. You tell me. Going into 09, I don't think people thought they were going to be that good of a team again, at least around the league.
Right.
Maybe around, this isn't just supposed to be a good team. You may have 3 Hall of Famers at the skill spots. You may. You have 1.
Oh, yeah.
I feel pretty good about
You're
you
on
have
the path
2.
to 2. Yeah.
And it's very early with A.J. Brown. But it's possible. Like right now, I could look at that group and say, 5 years from now, it could be right there. So if you
Tannehill rolls off a couple Super Bowls, may have 4.
Well, I mean, he has accumulated some numbers.
Yes, yes.
Even with Adam Gase, by the way. I mean, how much do you double his numbers now?
That should
because
count for
Gase was some of his best footballs with Adam Gase. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just the excitement of seeing this is like an NBA loaded up team or something, right? This offense.
Yeah.
That's what we think it will be. So that's where I think the anticipation is better than 09. I think you're close to 20 years.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans, look a little bit deeper into the matchup for the Titans coming up on Sunday against Arizona. They got the Rex Rant coming up later this hour as well. All that on the table. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Your favorite game, Silly Underdog Picks, is back. Get your friends or family and play as a group. Sign up to play today. Pick the 3 football underdog teams you think will win each week for a chance to win weekly prizes like a pair of tickets to a sporting event or to a concert in Nashville. Go to theGameNashville.com or the ESPN The Game Nashville mobile app and sign up to play now. Silly Underdogs is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. We've got the Rex Rant coming up at 7:45, as we do each and every Monday here on the program. Right now, talking Titans and looking ahead to Week 1's matchup for the Titans against the Arizona Cardinals. And, Joe, I think there's a lot of interesting matchups in this game, both on the offensive side of the ball and defensively as well for the Titans. I think what I may be most interested in is the battle of what could be the battle of 2 rookies in the slot. Elijah Molden, Rondale Moore. I know you'll be paying very close attention to that matchup coming up on Sunday, but I look around and I was thinking about this last night with everything Arizona brings to the table, from Kyler Murray's ability to pull the ball down and run, to DeAndre Hopkins on the field, to Julio Jones and A.J. Brown getting their first action together on the field. There's a lot of interesting matchups in this game in Week 1 for the Cardinals. We could be in for a treat on Sunday with these 2 teams lining up in, Arizona, maybe in the best division in all of football. Pretty good team out there.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't picking them to go to the playoffs, which I get, but I think that they're a playoff quality team, which is, I think the AFC is way better than the NFC.
Agreed.
And I'm not going to go, preseason record means not much, but it was like unbelievable. The AFC destroyed the NFC.
Well, Ravens.
Well, that's
undefeated.
right. Yeah, that's right. You
Won
don't
like
want
20 in a row,
to
man.
mess with those Ravens in the preseason. But I think the AFC is much better than the NFC, but the NFC West is loaded. And this is a team that's kind of getting slept on, maybe. And I think a lot of the story will come down to Kyler Murray. Can he be consistent? Can he take another step as a quarterback? But I love the Rondale Moore pickup. You got him with DeAndre Hopkins. Also, A.J. Green. There's some optimism that there's some gas in that tank still. So we'll see on that. And then defensively, J.J. Watt, big signing. I mean, to me, he's overpaid. Okay, he's had an incredible career. He's a Hall of Famer.
You gonna ask J.J. Watt about his mugshot?
Yes, on Zoom. on Zoom, far away from it, JJ.
That's right.
Yes, the little angry 11-year-old who got peanut butter and jelly, and he wanted a turkey sandwich in his lunch. But they got Zaven Collins now in, the rookie, with Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
They've got some speed on defense. Buda Baker is a really good safety in the league.
Number 19 in the NFL Top 100, Buda Baker.
That's pretty high. So it's
high.
not like they don't have – they've got a defense that can run with some people. And if J.J. Watt is – and I would imagine whatever he's got, it's game 1. He's as rested as he's going to be. He's as not banged up as he's going to be. I have my doubts about him finishing the season, all that stuff, just based on his history. But I would think that week 1, that's about as good as you're going to get from J.J. Watt. So the Titans are going to have to count for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, 16 games played last year from J.J. Watt.
I know. And good for him. And I'm not, not rooting for injury, not forecasting injury. I'm just saying – yeah, that's there has been a question with him, paying him that much is that. But early in the season, you could have some good stuff from J.J. Watt. So they're an interesting team. I just think this game, first game is also you have new players in. We have no idea what Bud Dupree is going to do for the Titans. Yep. What will Zaven Collins do for the Cardinals? What will Rondale Moore do for the Cardinals? What will Elijah Molden do, trying to cover Rondale Moore? There's so much you don't know. You start to know a team after you see them play this first game. But there's a lot of good football players on both sides here that are going to be running around Sunday.
Going to be interesting to see Bud Dupree and what his availability looks like for the Titans. Is he playing almost every snap? Do they manage him carefully in this game in week 1? I mean, it seems like he's going to be good to go for week 1. I guess we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with Bud Dupree. But if he's in there and he's playing, I wonder how aggressive they'll be with Bud Dupree to start the season, knowing that ultimately for your defense and for your pass rush to be what you hope it is, he's got to be a part of it for the long haul. So I wonder what that looks like in week 1.
I mean, to me, if he's playing, then he's going to play, and you're going to be in this game, which I think you're going to see haymakers both ways. At some point, you're probably going to be like, I mean, Bud's got to be out.
He's got to be in there,
right? Yeah. So I would suspect if he's active, he's active. And he's an every down player. He's a good run stopper. So maybe early, I guess you could say, maybe they would try to keep him in the sub package more and have different people early downs. Like Rashad Weaver is a guy who I think you feel pretty good about his physicality on early downs. Yep. So maybe they would rotate a little bit more that way. But yeah, Bud Dupree is one of those players to watch for sure. Autry and Simmons, we saw them a little bit in the preseason, but you're going to see a full game of that now. And, obviously that secondary has played well, but now you get some real tests for, whenever they are playing man, who is it who's with Hopkins? I don't know. Like if it was Malcolm Butler, it would be him.
Yeah.
Because you need as much physicality as you can get. I think the length of Caleb Farley, if this was a different, maybe later in the season, might be him. But I would guess it'd be Jenkins. I would guess. Yeah. I mean, he's a battler. He's not as physical as a Butler, but he battles, and he's a veteran, and he's seen him before, and,
well,
it probably makes sense.
The fact of the matter is, there are just going to be some throws and catches that are made between those two that you just got to live with. You're like, okay, yeah, that's DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. It's what he's going to do. So, you can't let him just absolutely destroy you like he's done at times with the Texans. But DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to make some plays in this game. You just got to find a way to be opportunistic if you're that Titans defense. And part of that is going to be, this is the first chance we'll see in a real game setting to see what version of Kevin Byard we're going to see this year. We talked about it a lot in the offseason. He gets paid a lot of money. He's been a huge playmaker for this team throughout his entire career for the Titans. Did not play well last year. Does that start to change this year? And we've talked about the factors that go into that with the pass rush in front of him. But in order for this defense to be a good defense and for them to be where they need to be to get this offense and to get this team as a whole to one of the top teams in the AFC, he's got to return to being a playmaker for this defense and could get some opportunities on Sunday with how much Arizona likes to throw that ball around.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I look, if they are affecting Kyler Murray, and the problem with affecting Kyler Murray is sometimes that can end up in an 18-yard run at your expense. But if they're forcing him off his spots and making him uncomfortable, and if the corner play is as improved as I think it could be, then I think you're going to have more opportunities for Kevin Byard to be a ball hawk, as he has been so well for a lot of his career. And I think Amani Hooker is another big guy to watch here for the Titans. He's had a good preseason. But we know what good preseasons don't always mean.
That's correct.
It's a very you come right out with this defense, and it's had a very good preseason. They've played well daily against that offense, but you come right out with Cardinal Seahawks. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see how much better you are.
It's a heck of a test early on. So we'll see what happens on the defensive side. Then offensively, obviously we've not seen any of Derrick Henry in game actions this year, but I think what he's going to bring to the table. This could be the first opportunity for Anthony Firkser as tight end 1. I'm interested to see how the Cardinals go about covering him because, you're going to be so focused on Derrick Henry, obviously A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. What do those opportunities look like for Anthony Firkser, a guy who Ryan Tannehill obviously trusts, and they've developed some chemistry? But this is his first shot at tight end 1 for the Titans coming up on Sunday. Interested to see how that goes in the passing game and how many targets he's going to get in this game.
Yeah, although the depth chart technically does have
say
Jeff Swaim. Swaim's still on the COVID list, by the way.
That is true.
I think today may be the day he can come off. I could look that up, but based on the timeline. But
maybe I shouldn't say tight end 1 for Anthony Firkser.
No, I mean according to the depth chart, very very important.
It is.
Swaim, they'll both play. But yeah, Firkser's going to have opportunities. The Cardinals they certainly have a lot of speed at the linebacker level.
Yep.
So, but still, I mean, you feel good if you're the Titans about any kind of matchup with a linebacker for Firkser. So, yeah, I think he'll get chances again. WR3, whoever that is, are we going to see Chester Rogers kind of playing in the slot? Is Josh Reynolds going to be ready? That's something that I'm going to be looking at today at practice. Is how does Josh Reynolds look out there? He came back, which was a good sign, because I thought Corey Curtis may have been onto something last week about him on IR. Speaking of Corey Davis, who was it just telling me? One of my friends telling me that they got Corey Davis in the fantasy draft. Very excited about it. So
yeah,
I mean, if top 100 player. You would
That's
think
true.
you would want to draft Corey Davis.
I did a mock draft yesterday. I got Corey Davis in like the 14th round, man.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good value.
So you're practicing.
Well, I have 3 drafts this week. I had 1 last night. I've got 1 tonight, and then ours on Wednesday.
We get it. You're popular, Robbie.
Wow.
I've turned down like 3 more fantasy football leagues. Look, 3's enough.
3's, yeah. I won't. Yeah, 2 to me is I can't do more than 2.
Yeah.
3, there's
a lot of time. I'm the commissioner of 2 of them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So
wow.
there's a lot. So I'm glad Michelle's the commissioner of this one.
That's right.
Listen, I have my full focus on this one. That's why I'm
right.
going to win. That was my called shot.
That's true. She didn't
Yes.
call that shot.
And you have to deal with all the people. With the commissioner, you got to deal with complaints.
That's right. Ron's on the text line, already talking some smack. Good morning, guys. Just wanted to know if you guys are ready for the fantasy football beatdown. Hope you guys have done your homework.
Wow.
Ron's ready.
Ron's been talking a lot of trash.
Ron has been. We're going to find out coming up later this week when our fantasy football draft takes place on Wednesday. When we come back, it's time for the Rex Rant. We do it every Monday morning at 7:45. Joe Rexrode's Rant of the Week coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And it is that time of the week, time for the Rex Rant here on the show. Joe Rexrode, every Monday at 7:45 with the Rex Rant, his rant of the week, and a beautiful song bringing us back in from break there. Maybe one of your favorites, Joe Rexrode.
Memories of being up early in the morning to go to school, and then that would be on the radio, and I'd get so mad. Just ruin my day.
How can you not feel like you're just on a beach?
I know.
Listening.
I don't know
to
why he
that,
hates that song
Rexrode.
so much, but he does.
I feel like I'm on a beach listening to terrible music. Now I don't like the beach anymore.
That may be my favorite one of the songs that we bring back in for break, other than Blink 182.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Maybe a little
lot of good ones there.
That's right. Joe Rexrode, what is today's Rex Rant here on the program?
Well, first of all, Caroline Rexrode was supposed to be in here today because it's Labor Day, and so she told me she was coming in today so she could do her Rex Rant about Jared. But believe me, she's like, okay, well, and then last night she's like, I don't think I want to wake up at 5 in the morning.
Well,
I'm like, okay, well, you had your chance. So she swears she's going to come in and do this during fall break. So we'll see. So instead, it'll be me. I don't have some big societal comment today or anything. This is going to be fast. But I just want to say, Titans Media League, I was all ready for my draft last night. Now, as you may know, I am the champion of the Titans Media League. It's a 14-team league. It's a very competitive league. Jessica Bliss, my good friend and former Tennessean coworker, beat her in the championship game. A lot of prominent Titan media members in this league who lost to me. Who let's see, who we got Kaharski and Wyatt and Beauclair and Glennon. It's okay. We got TD, but Buck's team sucks. Buck should just quit. You suck, Buck. Hutton. I mean, we got Ben Arthur in this year. I just found out as I'm looking at the roster, so that's exciting.
some additions.
So we have a draft last night. I'm all ready to go, and I find out that the draft has been rescheduled to tonight, 9 o'clock. It's Labor Day, and the draft is at 9 p.m. tonight. You tell me that the Titans Media League is not trying to screw with me directly because I won the league.
They're trying to
I don't
smoke you out,
believe
dude.
you. You're trying to mess with me because I go to bed like 9:30, sometimes 8:30.
Yeah.
Last night, also tough night because that Florida State Notre Dame game went late. I stayed up very late, so I really need to go to bed early tonight. And the Titans Media League reschedules for 9 p.m. So listen, that's fine. I'm gonna stay up, but I'll probably be half awake, and I will still draft the best team and repeat in the Titans Media League. So you guys can do whatever you want to do, change rules, change the scoring rules, whatever you want to do. The champ is here, and I'm not going anywhere.
So do you think you're this much in the Titans Media League's head that they've had to rearrange this draft just to really get after you?
Well, don't you think it's weird that you would have a 9 p.m. start? Why?
Oh, I think it's weird, yes.
Like it's a weeknight. It's Labor Day. It's a holiday, but it's a weeknight. Like everyone is going to work in the morning, right? So even for people who don't have the crazy schedules we do, that means you're staying up, like you're drafting probably past 11 p.m., right? Isn't that a little weird? But everybody else can handle it probably.
Yeah.
It's a little weird, but you know who it really screws over though? The champion. The champion of the league.
Reigning
Which is who
champion,
again?
Rexrode.
That's right.
Reigning.
That would be me. That would be me. That would be Fred O'Banion. That is my team name.
Nice.
I guess I could take that team name to our league too, but I'll try to come up with something different. Fred O'Banion, my little icon is like the Jason Voorhees, hockey mask killer, And there's no reason why you couldn't start the draft at 7 on Labor Day. I mean, I'm sure people are going to barbecues today. I'm going to one after the show, after the Titans. Great. You can't have a draft at 6, 7 p.m.? People aren't going to be home by then? People are at the barbecue till 8 p.m. on Labor Day?
They make mobile devices, too. Like I did a draft last night from Nissan Stadium.
Right.
It worked out pretty well.
But apparently we just got to wait till 9 p.m. So that's fine. It's noted. And there will be no mercy because of it.
If you go back to back, if you win again this year, I mean, you talked a pretty decent level of smack last year after, but I feel like that's going to go up dramatically with this latest development if you're to win again.
Well, I've already complained about this to certain members of the league, okay? So I'm pretty sure that Kaharski is just messing with me, but he said, "Oh, you won the league? I didn't even realize." I'm like, "Yeah, you realized."
No, you realize.
Although I don't even think you made the playoffs with your crappy team.
Who's the commissioner, Joe?
Yeah.
The commissioner is a Titans employee.
Okay.
Which I think is fine, but I guess I'll just hold off on naming Titans employees who are in this league. Okay. I don't think it's like some problem. But
I was going to say maybe it didn't work for their schedule. Maybe it wasn't you, Joe.
Yeah, so that's fine. So one person has a problem. And, sorry guys, we got to draft at 9 p.m. on a school night. It could be, and I will complain to him directly too. But I just thought I'd bring it to this. And Karski said if it was me won the league, I would have actually created some fanfare and buzz about it.
Wow.
And he may be being sarcastic because I did talk a lot about it, but I will talk more.
If you win again,
I promise you, I will talk more about this league.
I feel bad for them if you win again, Joe.
Yeah, it'll be unbearable. I promise you. So that's fine. No nap. Not much sleep. About 4 hours last night.
It could be an interesting show for you tomorrow.
Could be. That's okay. Because I'll come in, feel good about my team, and we'll go from there.
That's right.
And then the more important league, our league, comes Wednesday.
That's right. And we're drafting in a normal time, 6:30.
Yeah.
Not 9 p.m.
Right. I mean, yeah, so humans can get to bed, including not just us, but other people.
That is great. I can't wait to see how this goes out. Now, TD, I think we could see a bounce-back season from TD this year.
Well, TD's team is very good.
I know. And there was a battle that you two had last year.
I think we were the best two teams during the year.
Yes.
And then I don't forget if I beat him in the playoffs or if someone else did. But you know how the playoffs can go. I mean, it's one game. Anything can happen. So, he is the league member I fear the most. Yes. Like Glennon? No. Kaharski? Oh, my God. I mean, Buck is just – I don't even know if Buck ever watches football. We can go up and down this list of garbage teams. But, yeah, TD and obviously Jessica Bliss's boys. Yeah. It was a very good championship game. So there's some respectable teams and then some laughable ones.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Vincent from Dixon texting in. The champ always gets the toughest schedule. It is. It's like you've won the division and you just get all the 1 seeds.
So this is like a salary cap.
Yeah.
This is like draft. Like the NFL. I have
the only way to do it with the fantasy football draft.
I'd be fine if we had that. I'll take the last pick in the first round if we can draft at a human time. But whatever.
Prove them wrong, Rexrode.
That's right.
Let's two-peat it.
It's a big week for you.
I'm trying to think. So we have 14 teams.
Yeah.
Did we just add 2?
I don't know. You had 14 a year ago.
Did we? Okay.
Because I remember thinking that's a gigantic fantasy football league.
I wonder who Ben replaced.
I don't know.
I mean, probably Eric. Yep,
probably so.
That makes sense. Eric Bacharach.
There you go.
Also, not much competition, but love you, Eric.
Hope you're doing well, Eric. When we come back, we'll be joined by our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll continue to look ahead for week 1 for the Titans coming up against the Cardinals. All that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, real people, real solutions, right here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, and we do this every Monday at 8 o'clock. We go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey Curtis brought to you by Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet. Look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone, health and wellness, and body shaping treatments. InvigorateHealthTN.com for more info. Corey, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Oh, just ready to rock and roll. Ready to get the season started.
We are all ready to get the season started. Week 1 is finally here. It feels like it's taken forever to get to this point, but now that the Titans and Cardinals is upon us coming up this week, what's the most intriguing storyline to you for this Titans team as they head into Week 1 play?
Well, to me, there's really a couple. Number one, is the defense better? Because we saw a lot of good stuff in the preseason, but we also, didn't see some of the key components. And number two, will the offense be ready? I mean, because we've seen so little of some of these guys in practice. They've had so little time together. And just, I know they're professional athletes, and I know they know how to get their bodies together, but there's nothing to me that replaces playing football to get you ready for football. And some of these guys haven't played very much football in training camp.
So, Corey, we've talked some about the Cardinals. What do you think about them defensively? They add Zaven Collins. They have Isaiah Simmons. They got some young, speedy players. Obviously, we know Budda Baker's really good. What do you think of them as a collective unit, and what do you think J.J. Watt gives them this year and gives them Sunday?
Well, I mean, I think you bring up what's on the back end, and I think they've got some stuff there that's obviously young and speedy. They lose Malcolm Butler, so they're already on to number 2 at one of their corner spots, and so you've got somewhere where you feel like you can probably attack there. They don't just have J.J. Watt up front; they've got Chandler Jones. This is a guy who's had 19.5 sacks in recent years. I thought with J.J. Watt they massively overpaid. What is it? Give him $15 million a year. For a guy who's, had several severe injuries and is on definitely the downside of his career. Do I think he can give them something? Yes, but do I think it's going to be anywhere near what old J.J. Watt was when he was racking up, 20 sacks a year or whatever? No, I don't. So, I mean, for me, he's a guy that, you prepare for, but, he's not the guy. He's not the guy that you prepare for. I'm more concerned about Chandler Jones on the edge than I am J.J. Watt right now.
Corey, as you look at the Titans' offense with Julio Jones obviously not being much of a factor in training camp and in the preseason, and now hopefully being ready for Week 1 for the Titans, what's your concern level, if you're a Titans fan, about him not being out there to this point and the chemistry between him and Ryan Tannehill?
Well, I mean, we've talked about it, that, they're both good players. Obviously, Julio's a Hall of Famer. And, they'll produce. We know that. At some level, they're going to produce. They're too good not to produce. The concern is that, that's, for me at least, that slight nuance, that knowing how everybody's going to react in every situation. And, is that what keeps you from connecting on a critical play at a critical moment? Are you a second off, or is you expecting him to break one way and he breaks the other because you just haven't had enough time together? And I guess that could be possible still if he'd been practicing, but they've had so little time together. But we've seen guys get traded and jump out there and just go. So it's possible, and maybe we're worrying too much. Like when they traded for him, I had Jared on the show and we did over and under, and I joked with him, over and under Julio Jones practices at 8 this year, because when they traded for him, I didn't expect him to practice much because his history says He's not going to practice very much. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Regardless of the lack of practice he's had over the last few years, he's still been a massively productive player. And, we also have liked the depth that they've developed at that position so that if he can't go, you don't feel completely, abandoned at that position if he can't play. But, I have some concern, not concern that he can't be a 1,000-yard guy, but just, like I said, at that critical moment that it won't happen.
Well, speaking of Julio and Jared, Corey, Jared had some interesting stuff last week. Talking to someone with knowledge of Julio in Atlanta, and not just the practice stuff, but also apparently there was a play they had drawn up for him, and he goes off the field, and there was just some general I don't want to say resentment. There was maybe resentment is the right word, but there was some bad feelings between Julio. And this is not Jared. This is, Arthur Blank talked to Jeff Schultz last week talking about how it was between the coaching staff and the front office and Julio. So what do you think of that? Do you separate it out in terms of they had the contract and maybe that's where things went bad, or do you have increased concerns about him here based on all this stuff?
Well, I think there are concerns. I don't think you can completely discount it, but I also think the Falcons probably bear some blame there because that's a situation where they cultivated that relationship, right? This is a guy who was seemingly never happy with his contract. He got the big contract to be the highest paid receiver in the game. And then a couple of years later, when new contracts are being signed, suddenly he's aghast that guys are making more than him when that's how things happen. And if you want to always be the highest paid guy, you've got to sign 1-year deals. You can't sign a long-term deal and expect that to happen. And then, continually missing practice and things like that, I don't know what those conversations were. You don't know what those conversations were. And, the relationship that they developed and the way they catered to him created more and more of that situation. It's going to be interesting to see how Mike Vrabel and John Robinson handle Julio Jones and what he thinks he needs to be successful. And, are they able to have some give and some take, or is it all just give?
Corey Kurtz from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Corey, when the Titans drafted Caleb Farley, we talked about the injury concern with you and what that could look like with the Titans as they move forward here. Obviously, don't anticipate he's going to be a starter coming up on Sunday, but at what point would you anticipate Caleb Farley being a major factor with this Titans defense? And I guess the better question is, at what point do you get concerned if he's not?
Look, he is so raw at this position that I'm not making this a throwaway year or anything. But I expect his best football to be years down the line. Because this is a guy who's played cornerback for like 1 year. He was in high school. He was one of these athletes who was like the do-it-all quarterback who did absolutely everything on the field. And then he goes to Virginia Tech and he's a wide receiver. And he's their best wide receiver. And then they decide to move him to cornerback, and he played corner for 1 year, and then he had the back issue. So, he's played corner for 1 year, and then he hasn't played for a while because of the surgeries. So I'm not going to panic about this season at all. It's upsetting when you don't get anything, that's not the right way to put it. When you don't get a huge impact from your first-round pick necessarily right off the bat, but we knew that was the case when they decided to go this route when they drafted him. Now, do I think he can still contribute this year? Absolutely. He needs to practice, and he needs to get in games, when they feel like he's ready. And I think he'll get time early. I would anticipate halfway into the season that his role would be increasing and that he'll be much more ready. But he clearly just needs time. The good thing is, he wants to play. I think he wants to play badly. I think he wants to improve, and I think he knows he's got rust to shake off, and he knows the only way to shake it off is to work every day. And we don't get a lot of time to sit and talk with these guys because we can't go in the locker room right now. But my impression of him is he wants it. He wants to shake off that rust. He wants to play, but he's got a lot of rust to shake off, and he's got skills to develop. He's kind of got a double whammy against him in that scenario.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I guess maybe less interesting is the idea of Dylan Radunz making any kind of impact at this point. That doesn't seem too likely. But right tackle right now, the three other guys, who are technically in the mix. How do you think that plays out? How big of a concern is that position for you in terms of potentially, bringing down a little bit what I think could be a really good offensive line otherwise?
I am not that concerned about it, and I'm not that concerned about it for one reason. Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards, and they averaged 30.7 yards per carry, basically splitting the left tackle position, which people look at as even more critical, between Quisenberry and Tyson Brilo last year. I mean, they got it done last year at that spot. Did they have to hold Jonnu in a little bit more? Yes, they did, but they still put up prolific numbers with those guys playing on the left side. So if they can do it with them playing on the left side, I feel fairly confident that they can do it with those guys on the right side. So, do they need to settle on one of those guys? Yes. Is it disappointing that Dylan Radunz doesn't look like he's going to be able to contribute at that position at all this year? Yes, it is. And he's at a spot now at guard where he's backing up two guys who are really good players in Saffold and Davis. So, do we see him at all this year? Is a really big question, because if he's playing mostly guard, unless those guys get hurt, we don't think we'll see him at all. But as far as Quiz and Sombrilo and I guess Kendall Lamb, I haven't seen very much of him. But I have a trust level with those other guys because they produced for the Titans last year, and I think they can produce as a reasonable level this year.
Well, Corey, it's exciting. This time next week when we're talking to you, we'll be breaking down Game 1 for the Titans against the Arizona Cardinals. It's finally here, my friend.
It is finally here. We're 3 days away now from actually kicking off the season with the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. I think one of the really interesting things about the Titans is that the expectations vary so wildly compared to some other teams. And, to get some of those questions answered is either going to be fun or it's going to be not fun at all. So we'll see.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. Corey Curtis, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Corey, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
All right. Thanks, guys. You have a great week.
Absolutely. You
Thanks,
as
Corey.
well. Corey Curtis joins us every week here on Robby and Rexrode. Brought to you by Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet. You can look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone, health and wellness, and body shaping treatments. For more information, visit InvigorateHealthTN.com. We'll come right back. We'll react a little bit to what Corey had to say there. Continue to look ahead to the Titans and the Cardinals. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. This Friday, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Saturday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Friday morning at 9:45. Robby Stanley on the board in the Nashville SC Pick to Click competition. Closing the gap, Joe Rexrode. Listeners still at 6. You're at 2. Michelle, Porth, and myself now all at 1.
How hyped were you at the game, Robby?
Oh, I was pretty excited. My wife looked at me when Mukhtar scored and was like, "What are you doing?" Hey, man.
What did you do? What were you doing?
I mean, both fists went up in the air, started yelling, screaming around a little bit. My wife was like, "What's wrong with you?"
That's awesome.
I was like, first off, he scored. It was a good goal. So I'm celebrating.
Yeah.
And I'm on the board in the competition.
Did you get into any of the like the supporter group chants and stuff? Like, have you
I've done it before. I've actually sat there before.
With
the roadies.
Yeah, with the roadies. Yeah. Nice.
You're never bored there. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. But a big win for Nashville SC on Friday night as well. They continue to just roll right along. Dominant performance against New York City, and they continue to stack up the points. So they're going to be a big threat heading into the playoffs this year. Going to be good to see on that front.
Yeah. I mean, alone in second right now.
Yeah. It's a good spot to be in your second year in the league.
And I want to say I saw something where they have the fewest losses of a team in the league.
Yeah.
At this point, it's been many years. I don't remember the exact year, but it's been a lot of years.
Yeah, they had some draws in there.
Plenty of draws, but fewest losses at this point in the season since someone a long time ago. I'm bringing you the real stats here on Robby Rexrode.
Well done.
Just trust me, it's impressive.
That's right. Thanks to Corey Curtis for joining us in the last segment. Going to be interesting, and I brought up Caleb Farley with Corey. Obviously you've got your starting corners, and Caleb Farley is not in that group right now. But there is a rotation that takes place. How involved, I guess, would you expect Caleb Farley to be as the Titans go through the early part of the season here? As Corey said, he's still figuring things out at the NFL level. He needs to practice a little bit more, needs to be developed a little bit more before he's ready to be a starting corner in the league. How involved would you expect Caleb Farley to be early on for the Titans?
That's a great question. I don't know. I like right now, I expect Fulton, Jenkins, Molden to be your starting 3. If Caleb Farley plays at this point, he's going to play outside based on where he's been getting reps. Honestly, if they need to replace one of those two guys, I think it would probably be Breon Borders at this point. That'd just be my guess. And then I don't think Caleb Farley's going to be in special teams. I don't think they're going to get him involved in that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I would doubt it. So if we don't see Caleb Farley Sunday, I'm not going to be that surprised. But I think to Corey Curtis's point, you also shouldn't be too concerned. I mean, this was a long-term pick. Although it was a first-round pick, this was a pick with the idea of this guy is going to be a number 1 corner in the league for years. And you knew with someone who hasn't played the position much, who hasn't played in 2 years, who's had multiple back surgeries, that the idea that he's just going to be, boom, ready to go day one was far-fetched. Now, if the Titans were in the same corner position as they were a year ago, if you had the exact same situation with Caleb Farley right now, but you went back a year, maybe he would play out of necessity.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of a good thing if you think about it just in terms of, like, Fulton has had a pretty good camp. I'm interested to see how he looks. Jenkins was a nice pickup. I like how he's looked. He still has speed. He battles. He'll get beat, but he's a pretty good player. And then Molden, especially late in camp, has really come on in the slot. So a year ago, you had Chris Jackson starting the opener at Denver. He had outperformed Fulton. Of course, people were a little bit surprised to see him on the starting lineup on opening night, but Fulton also had injuries in camp. But obviously we saw Jonathan Joseph out there last year. Caleb Farley would have played last year. This year, I think Corey's right. One way or the other, because someone gets hurt always, and and he may just come on and push. But I think it will be a while. And so if you're a Titans fan looking for number 3 Sunday and you don't see him and you're disappointed, I'd give it a little bit of time. I mean, I think overall it's been a very encouraging process here in the last month compared to what it could have been. I wasn't sure that he'd be playing tackle football right now.
No, I wasn't either. And the fact that he got on the field as quickly as he did is encouraging. I hear what Corey's saying on the, he's only played cornerback for 1 year thing, and I get it. That's true, and there's going to be some development there that's required to take place. I also, if I'm a Titans fan, am sitting there looking around saying, man, right now you've got Derrick Henry, you've got A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Ryan Tannehill. Is it really a great idea to keep drafting these long-term projects? Why don't you bring somebody in that can help you right now and win with your first-round pick? And look, maybe Caleb Farley this year at some point can. I'm not saying that that's just absolutely out of the realm of possibility. But I can see from a Titans fan's point of view where you're in this window. We talk so much about this window to win, and you keep drafting people who can't help you on the field right now. That's at some point a problem if I'm a Titans fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, their first-round pick last year, they expected to help right away, and he didn't.
Nobody can foresee something like that coming.
I mean, their second-round pick this year, I know that, I know John Robinson said, hey, it's cool. He's, he's versatile, but I have a hard time believing that when they drafted him, they didn't think that he might have a chance to be the right tackle this year. Well, so far that hasn't worked out. So I don't know that these are necessarily like choices of long-term development. It's just that's how it's worked out. I will say, so I mean, if you look at, you look at the other picks, shortly after them, I guess one thing you look at is like a Greg Newsome. Like if Greg Newsome is really good for Cleveland this year as a rookie, he was certainly one of those guys. I thought they would take him instead of Farley. There's something you'd look at. You could also look at the receiver position too, because some of those receivers, I'm trying to think who went next. So the next receiver was Bateman with the Ravens, who was looking good before he got hurt.
I mean, Elijah Moore is looking pretty good in New York Jets camp. We know Titans fans love him, some Elijah Moore.
That's right. No, he is looking good. You got some of the edge guys that they could have taken, but I mean, I think, when you spend big like they did, they ended up with a pretty good value at that position, we think, later. But, yeah, I think the thing is, Robbie, it's like if they win like they hope to win, then and obviously down the road you're still hoping he becomes the number one corner, then it's okay. But, yeah, if they come up short and they're not as good, then you're going to look at the first and the second round and say, so you're not getting anything out of those guys. When you're in this position, you're in this win now, here's the window, jump through it position. That's not great.
No, it's not. And, again, I think you like a lot of what Caleb Farley brings to the table. By all accounts, he works and he's coachable and all those things you like from Caleb Farley. I would just hope at some point this year he can be a factor for you and that he can be developed to a point where you're comfortable putting him out on the field. And look, maybe he could stay healthy at the corner position and he's not a starter at the end of the year. Is that the world's biggest deal? Probably not. Like if he can come out and he can play and he can give you some valuable reps, I think that's a good thing. But really interested to see how they handle him the first few weeks of the year as they're trying to bring him along at the same time as they are spending time winning football games on the field throughout the week as well. That's the interesting balance. Like, in other sports, you've got so much time that you can work with some of your younger guys that you see development take place pretty quickly. Like in the NFL, if you're a coaching staff, yeah, you've got a practice squad and you can spend time working with these guys. But also, like, your main job throughout the week is getting your starters ready to play and play at the NFL level and trying to win a football game on Sunday. So that balance is pretty interesting for Vrabel and his staff as they move forward here.
Right. And look, I mean, ideally, yeah, like Farley is pushing. I mean, you don't want anyone to get hurt, so you want those guys to be healthy and play well. But ideally, Farley keeps coming to the point where it's like, okay, boy, you got to get this kid on the field. I mean, that's what you hope to have. You hope to have that problem. You don't have that problem right now. You have, I think, a better corner group even without that problem, but you want to have that problem this year. So you're right. It comes down to what do you have to try to win week after week. Very hard to win in this league. And you can't think about, well, he was a first-round pick, so gosh, we need to get him on the field. I mean, you just, as a coach, you can't think that way at all. But it would be good and a good reflection of the pick if Farley becomes a factor.
Coming up next, we'll react to a wild opening weekend of college football around the country, including a couple of upsets that were thrown out on the table as well. That's coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, presented by Volunteer State Bank. Visit volstatebank.com to learn more about our free Kasasa checking account, member FDIC, equal housing lender. We'll be right back here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Big win over the weekend for the UCLA Bruins. They take down Coach O and the LSU Tigers 38-27, the final score on Saturday night. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, presented by Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Volunteer State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Joe, that was a heck of a performance by Chip Kelly and UCLA over the weekend. 38-27, the win against LSU. And to your point earlier in the show, really kind of manhandling LSU at the line of scrimmage and with a more physical team, which when you look at LSU's roster, the conference that they play in, and the talent that they have at their disposal, that should really never happen against UCLA, but it absolutely did on Saturday night. And credit to Chip Kelly for a big win against Ed O and company.
Yes, Chip Kelly. I've had my questions about him coming back. It went poorly in the NFL. Hasn't looked great so far there, but that's impressive. And it's not impressive from the Coach O standpoint. I mean, I thought there was a chance LSU would lose, but they they got it handed to them in that game, and I don't know, it's amazing. The whole Coach O roller coaster is already has been something else, and now when you're two years removed from just an incredible team, which had an incredible quarterback and really good coordinators, and I don't know, man, Coach O. It has not been good. That was, I mean, it's crazy to think you could be talking hot seat about a guy who's that not far removed from a national championship, and yet this is the SEC.
Yeah, well, and it's that program too, and I think we could be getting there with Coach O. Now, look, there's a lot of this after the game on Saturday, and a lot of LSU fans say, man, it's starting to look like 2019 was more of a Joe Burrow and Joe Brady accomplishment than it was Coach O. And I was like, well, yeah, Joe Burrow had one of the greatest quarterbacking seasons we've ever seen in college football, maybe the greatest.
It wasn't because Coach O was like, come on, Joe, do it, you can do it, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, you know.
He was slinging the ball around all over the place. So, look, yes, the 2019 team, it had a lot to do with Joe Burrow. Turns out he's pretty good. But I would have expected there to be, I guess, a little bit more of a continuation along that path and not a complete drop-off. I mean, they weren't very good last year, and tough start for LSU this year too.
Well, that's the thing. Last year, they lost.
They lost
so.
a lot.
What did they lose? 14 guys in the first 3 rounds. It was a stupid amount of talent leaving for the NFL. And of course, you lose the coordinators, you lose your star quarterback, all this stuff. So you expect, and last year was weird too, right? So I didn't really buy into the. I mean, look, it's just like there's Vanderbilt fans who want Clark Lee fired now after one game. I mean, like there's always some fans who want the coach fired.
Yes.
I didn't really buy into that as a real thing after last year. 1 year, all those factors. But that performance makes me wonder about that team this year. And if they're just like a so-so team, that's not okay at LSU anymore. The recruiting dictates that it's not okay. I mean,
in that state. My goodness.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, but the roster is too good for performances like that. Based on the roster, as in based on what we know of it, based on recruiting rankings, which have their limitations, but over time, there's some correlation between recruiting rankings and success.
Absolutely. So a tough start to the season for LSU over the weekend, and we'll see if they can rebound as they start the SEC play coming up here in just a couple of weeks. It was an interesting weekend in the world of college football. Some good teams that struggled. We talked about Penn State, Wisconsin, that game earlier. That was a brutal game to watch in the first half. Got a little bit better in the second half. And Penn State, James Franklin and company, get it done, 16-10, the final score up in Wisconsin at Camp Randall. Going to be interesting to see how they rebound this year. Obviously, what did Penn State start last year, 0-5? They were really bad last year to begin play. Looks like James Franklin and company, they may rebound a little bit this year.
Well, he's recruited extremely well. They've got a lot of good players. I love the D based on what we saw. That's a good defense.
They played very well.
And, of course, they lost Tim Banks, who, of course, is at Tennessee now. I still don't have a huge amount of faith in Peter Clifford, their quarterback. I think he's okay. But, yeah, they're going to have a good year.
There was
it's a good program.
Another targeting penalty in this game that, just drives me nuts. And it drove me nuts again in Penn State, Wisconsin. Look, was the play targeting? Probably. But it was a very high-speed play. The quarterback lowered his head and then gets hit in the head. And Penn State's best defensive player gets kicked out of the game and will miss the first half of the next game. A punishment like that on a play like that, when there's clearly no intent, just continues to drive me nuts in college football.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Well, right. I mean, we've talked about trying to distinguish between the people that are using a helmet as a weapon, even if you don't. To me, like even if you don't connect with the head, if you use your helmet, like we argued about in the playoff last year, I thought that was the right call. But at this, I agree with you. This was a players going fast, and you happen to make the contact. Like that, to me, this should be a 15-yard penalty and no ejection. And the plays where where you're actually launching wherever you hit the player.
Yep.
If you launch, that's dangerous. That's got to be taken out of the game. So I hated it too. I did. I mean, in general, I think that punitive nature of the penalty does help make the game safer over time, but it's got to still make sense. And it's got to be when intent's involved and not when you happen to have helmets hit each other.
Right. And Wisconsin loses the game. Not a good game from Graham Mertz at the quarterback position for Wisconsin. He is a 5-star recruit. He finishes 22 of 37, 185 yards, 2 brutal interceptions that he threw towards the end of that game.
The last one, he just threw it up. But yes.
The fumbling the ball all over the place in the red zone. Not a very good game for Graham Mertz. And also, like, it's just kind of typical of a Wisconsin team where you always know they're going to be great defensively, but they run an offense from 1974, and it's tough to watch sometimes, them play offensive football.
Yeah, Badgers fans, and then Badgers fans are watching Jack Cohn play for Notre Dame last night.
Just slinging it.
And now he plays in a little bit more modern offense. I'd say Brian Kelly's a little bit better. Paul Chris is a good coach, good offensive coach. But Brian Kelly, that offense is a little bit more wide open and creative and look pretty good. So Badgers fans not feeling great right now. Plus, like, Iowa looks awesome. So
yeah,
Big Ten West could be interesting. And you don't say that every year.
No, you do not. But kind of a rough weekend for the Big 12. Oklahoma struggles with Tulane. They win 40-35. Tulane got an onside kick, got a little hairy towards the end of that game against Oklahoma. And then Iowa State taking on a Northern Iowa team that is a good team, but 16-10 the final score. And they were in a dogfight the whole game there, the number 7 team in the country. So the top part of the Big 12 did not go so well for them on Saturday. They win the games, but it was very close.
Oklahoma, you better get that D figured out before you come to the SEC.
Yeah, it was not any SEC defense.
It was not good. It was not good. Yeah, and Iowa State, Matt Campbell, I mean, that's he's kind of like reminds me of, it's like an Iowa, Wisconsin kind of approach to the game. They play sound defense. They run the ball.
Yeah.
They're physical. Iowa State could be a 10-7 game, but it's a very good game.
It is a very
good matchup this week.
I believe that's where College Game Day is going to be.
Is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
I have to double check on that. But yeah, big game coming up for Iowa State coming up this weekend. Alabama continues to roll just like Alabama always does. And we talked about it on Friday. The 18.5 point line on Alabama heading into that game is absurd. That's the easiest money you've ever made in your life. And I said in Call Your Shot Friday, Alabama would win by 28 plus, and Alabama won by 28 plus. 44-13 the final. And it was not as close as that score would indicate.
No, it was complete domination. I mean, this defense, this is going to be the best defense Nick Saban's had in a few years.
Yep.
Which is perfect timing because you have this very young offense, which is also going to be ridiculously stupidly good. Yeah.
By the way, Brian Robertson just running the ball all over the place now, too. He's just next in line for the Alabama running backs. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
He ran through, the first time he got the ball, he ran through, four Hurricanes. I was like, oh, good. So they've got another running back like that. Awesome.
Yeah. And their offensive line, and, it's
have you seen their left tackle?
Well, so I didn't see – someone told me that they had a thing about him with the box jumps. I didn't see that.
Oh, my goodness.
But apparently it was ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. He's probably going to be a top 5 pick.
350?
Yeah.
6'8"?
Yeah.
All right, 6'8", 350?
Yep.
Sure.
Why not? Just put him back on that Alabama line. The Tide rolls pretty easily. But an interesting game over the weekend as well, Georgia and Clemson. Defensive struggle in that game. The only touchdown of the game is a pick 6 by the Bulldogs. And Kirby Smart, he gets a signature win. That's a big win for the Dogs, taking down Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. Clemson on a 2-game losing streak. You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, well, Clemson, maybe they'll miss Trevor Lawrence a little bit.
I think so.
But I tell you what, the Georgia defense, I think, is just legit. There's been talk around there. Actually, there was talk in both camps about could this be, the best defense for both of those teams. I like Clemson's a lot too. I mean, let's remember Georgia did not score an offensive touchdown this game. I didn't think JT Daniels looked that great.
No,
but their D, man. I mean, I just don't see anyone beating them. I don't see anyone coming close to beating them. Maybe Florida can give them a game, but they're in great shape now to get to Atlanta and play for seeding. That's a huge win. It is, and it's still the criticism of Kirby Smart is still going to be, okay, can you actually though put together an offense? Like, look at your former employer and what they're doing, and you're still playing this kind of ball, and that's fair. But it's also, can you get over the hump in the big games? He just did in this one, and that's just a tremendous. Like, I think Clemson. Uiagalelei is he's not Trevor Lawrence.
Well done.
Thank you. He's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not, Heisman candidate right now. But you know what? He's going to have some big games this year, and they are going to have some big – they're going to be just fine. And you're going to look back at this game and say, wow, you gave up 3 points to them and took one back on him. That's a loaded defense.
When we come back, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the SEC slate this past Saturday, including – a very disappointing showing from Vanderbilt as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Better days ahead for Clark Lee and Vanderbilt. Again, it'll be a growing process for sure. but tonight just was not the Commodores' night. 23-3, the final score as the Buccaneers pull it off.
A tough one for the Commodores on Saturday night, falling 23-3 at the hands of ETSU. We'll get a little bit more into that coming up here in just a few minutes. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank, now with 2 locations in Murfreesboro. You can visit our brand new Murfreesboro location at 2019 Memorial Boulevard. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, it was largely a pretty decent weekend for the SEC outside of the LSU game that we talked about and Vanderbilt, which we'll get a little bit more into here in just a few minutes. Kentucky, big win over UL Monroe, 45-10. Big Catter Day for Michelle out there on Saturday. It was big stuff.
Big Catter Day, Robby.
They had the forward pass that they threw. It was an exciting development for Kentucky on Saturday.
I mean, seriously, they I know early on, I mean, were you watching this intently? Were you watching every play of this game?
I cannot say
locked in.
I cannot say I was watching every play, but I felt pretty confident heading into it. And if you head over to Twitter, I don't know if you guys just saw it, but I just called my shot that they're going to beat LSU in Lexington October 9th.
Oh.
Caroline Fenton and I will be in attendance.
Oh.
So that will be
that's fun.
That could be spicy.
Yes, it could be.
Well, that's a good called shot. I was just wondering if you saw the because they had a pick 6 early.
Yeah.
I bounced up. I was like, oh no, here we go. Kentucky throwing the ball, more issues, but turned out pretty good. So, yeah, 18 for 26, 367, 4 touchdowns.
Not bad.
I mean, it's a bad opponent, but still, I mean, that's a good all-around team and could be really interesting. Maybe. I mean, I'm going to say well, it's hard to say dark horse in the East because Georgia's going to blow everyone away, but that may be the top challenger to Georgia, right? In the East?
I like the sound of that, Rexrode.
Might be.
Yeah, Florida didn't look great on Saturday. I mean, 35-14, they win against FAU, but Florida is kind of a lot of they're okay on Saturday night.
I saw
Emory
very
Jones,
little.
17 of 27, 113 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks.
2 picks. Oh, so they brought in Anthony Richardson,
Yeah.
3 for 8 for 40 yards, but
I don't know that I trust Emory Jones at quarterback.
am I seeing this correctly that Anthony Richardson had 7 carries for 160 yards and a touchdown?
You are seeing that correctly,
My goodness.
including a 73-yarder.
So that's interesting. Maybe that becomes
Ran
a
the
QB.
ball. I mean, they ran for 400 yards in
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah,
So
'cause,
maybe that's what you got to do.
Malik Davis is really good. Yeah, I mean, Emory Jones had 10 for 74, so they did whatever they wanted up front. But, yeah, that wasn't exactly a statement opener for them.
They're difficult to figure out because, I mean, obviously last year with Trask and Pitts, you've got some weapons offensively that just, I mean, nobody could stop Kyle Pitts last year, and they took it to Georgia last year with the way that they played. Now, Emory Jones, I think, is a pretty significant step down from Kyle Trask, and you don't have Kyle Pitts running around out there either. So this is a much different looking Florida offense, and we've talked about it, typically, and it's been interesting to watch this throughout his career, but a lot of times when you don't feel like Dan Mullen's team's going to be all that great, that's when he does a really good coaching job, and the team's pretty good.
Yep.
So that could happen again with Florida this year. I mean, they are the number 13 team in the country, but I don't know that the weapons offensively are quite there like they were a year ago.
See, it's funny you say, Emory Jones, big step down from Kyle. I'm thinking back to watching some Kyle Trask a couple weeks
Tampa
ago,
Bay.
but
Yeah.
It's the NFL. I mean, he was great. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate last year. And I think a lot of that is what Dan Mullen does around his quarterbacks, and it's Kyle Pitts too.
There is
and
that.
Kadarius Toney and some of these guys who are not there anymore. But I do think Dan Mullen has a chance to figure stuff out. And he's got a couple quarterbacks here who definitely give you, they're multi-dimensional quarterbacks. So I wouldn't rule them out. But, yeah, there are questions. And it's early. It's time to overreact. We got to overreact to the first week. My overreaction is that I think Kentucky might be better than Florida.
Wow.
Catter Day.
A lot of good Catter days ahead.
That's right. Down on the Plains, Auburn, a 60-10 win against Akron. Derek Mason, pretty decent showing in his first game as defensive coordinator for the Tigers against that mighty Akron Zips offense.
The
that they
Zips
put to the table.
The Zips didn't do much zipping. Yeah, better night for the former Vandy head coach than the new one.
That is correct. And Joe, you were in the house for that game. 23-3, the final score on Saturday night. East Tennessee State takes down Vanderbilt in Clark Lee's debut. 23-3. I guess let's just start with the obvious of the game itself, because Gentry Estes wrote this in a piece for the Tennessean, and you came out with a good piece on The Athletic about it as well. You know, it's one of those games where you watch it and it didn't feel like a fluke. I mean, it was East Tennessee for the majority of the game being the better team, and they end up winning 23-3. It actually could have been worse. They got a pick six taken off the board because of a taunting penalty that would have made it, I think, 27-3 at the time. So a pretty dominant win for ETSU in their first game against Vandy.
Yeah, like, look, it could have been an escape. It looked like it might be an escape when Mike Wright throws a touchdown pass to Chris Pierce. It's like, okay, so they figured it out. They're going to be okay. You're like, oh, Mike Wright playing better than Ken Seals. What does that mean? But it gets taken off the board, and then it's still, it's 13-3, so it's bad. But, like, you're still in it. There's still plenty of time in the fourth quarter. Ken Seals is back in the game trying to lead a comeback, and he just loses the ball, draws it back to throw it on, like, 3rd and 5, drops the ball, scoop and score. That's when you knew it was over. And like you said, it should have been a final of 27-3. So you had two, defensive return touchdowns to blow it open. But still, we're talking about Vanderbilt scoring 3 points on the night. And we're talking about ETSU really running at will in that game, taking some shots downfield. But just to me, the most surprising thing, because I thought the offensive line was going to struggle this year, going to have its leaks, and even in this game, some. Not as many as they did, but some. But the most surprising thing to me was just ETSU being able to line up and run at Vanderbilt the way it did. I thought Vanderbilt's defense was better than that. Like, good enough to beat ETSU.
Yeah.
Good enough to beat UConn, and that may still be true. Colorado State, not a great team coming up next this week, but it was just an all-around. It was abysmal.
Well, it was, and you talk about, on the ground, ETSU, 179 yards on the ground. Holmes accounted for 149 of those himself on 23 carries, averaged 6.5 per carry along at 37 yards. They just won the battle at the line of scrimmage. And look, we talked about this earlier in the show. We knew this was going to be a long build for Clark Lee, and he's got a lot of work to do taking over this program. This program was in awful shape when he took it over, and we get that. There's really never an excuse for an SEC team to lose to an FCS team. I don't care what your program looks like. You should not be losing to ETSU. It was not good.
Right. Last time it happened was South Carolina to the Citadel in 2015.
Yep.
Before that, it was Florida to Georgia Southern in 13. Now, when you say an SEC team,
That's true.
I mean, when you say, like, there's no excuse for an SEC team to lose an FCS team, well, I mean, it is different, right? I mean, Vanderbilt, there are plenty of SEC fans who I saw again on Twitter, get them out of the SEC, Replace them with whoever, bring Clemson in, replace Vandy. It's not going to happen. But still, this is, and I didn't see that. I think Aria Gerson was talking about this in the press box. Just for Vanderbilt to lose an FCS team, it's been a long time.
Yep.
So 2 years ago, a bad Vanderbilt team, its most recent win for the program. Bad Vanderbilt team, bad season, put Derek Mason on the hot seat. Probably a not terribly different ETSU team from what it is today. Vanderbilt won 38-0. So that should give you a little bit of an idea. Yeah, it's 2019 now. It's 21. But a lot of the same players on both sides. And you go from that to this. That's sobering.
We'll continue the conversation on Vanderbilt when we come back. Take your thoughts on our text line and our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. What were your thoughts on Vanderbilt's loss to ETSU? How concerned are you with Clark Lee's debut, if you're a Vanderbilt fan? All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Volunteer State Bank, conveniently serving Middle Tennessee with 13 locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Labor Day morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, reacting to a 23-3 loss for Vanderbilt against ETSU on Saturday in Clark Lee's debut. And many things went wrong for Vanderbilt on Saturday. The quarterback play was not great. We mentioned the line of scrimmage in the last segment. ETSU won that battle handily, and it was just really a game from start to finish where Vanderbilt couldn't get anything going offensively, and a couple of big mistakes at the end of the game really blew that game open, including a play where Ken Seals just literally dropped the ball as he's trying to throw it. So some unforced errors a part of the equation as well for Vanderbilt, and obviously not a positive environment for Clark Lee after the game, and lots to work on for this Vanderbilt program as they move forward here. Here was Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee after the game on Saturday, a 23-3 loss for Vanderbilt against East Tennessee State.
Hey, Clark, I'm just curious, what did tonight maybe tell you about how far you may have to go with this rebuild and what the journey may look like in order to get there?
Well, this is a tough result to stomach. I mean, but listen, I didn't sign up for this, or, we as coaches and as players, we understand that part of being in the arena competition is, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. There are going to be good results and there are going to be bad results. And we have to make the choice to win the response. That's as simple as it is. Where does it tell me where we are in the rebuild? Hey, look, we have a long way to go. But I mean, I knew that heading into the season. We can cover that ground quickly if we set our intention to learning from this, not letting this define us. We can be disappointed, but let's not be defeated. Let's understand that this is game one of 12 scheduled games this season. And so let's use it as an opportunity to fuel us forward, and maybe a moment that expedites our progress towards the program that we know we can build here. And so this has always been about the vision for the future at Vanderbilt. It's never been about just playing East Tennessee State on September 4th. This is about how we build this program to sustain success over time. And this can be a critical learning moment for everyone involved as we move forward.
So that was Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee after the loss on Saturday, talking about, this game. It's never been about just the ETSU game, and there's a lot of work to do as they move forward here. Joe Rexrode, I ask you were in the building on Saturday. You saw what happened here and what the state of this football team is at the moment. How do you go about responding and building from here if you're Clark Lee, when you also factor in, I think, a really interesting element that you brought up earlier, and that is the quarterback position? You've got Ken Seals. You've got Mike Wright. Obviously, Ken Seals has been the better passer throughout camp. Mike Wright, maybe the best athlete that Vanderbilt has on the field in general, much less at the quarterback position. How do you go about responding from here if you're Clark Lee in this Vanderbilt program as they continue to move forward and trying to get over a loss to an FCS program to begin their season?
Well, it's a huge week in terms of, again, just Vanderbilt fans who are upset, who are, seriously asking, like if he goes 0-12, is it possible he'll be fired? Already getting to please calm down. But it's a huge, in the real world, it's a huge week for them to respond, for them to play better, at least be competitive in this game. I think just in terms of him and his players sticking together this year, if it's hopeless every Saturday and more than not are just purely embarrassing, it's just hard. It's hard to do all the things you want to do with the program in the first year if it's that bad in the field of play. So it's a huge week, huge test of him and his coaching staff. It's funny, some of the reaction, it's not surprising, but it does strike me how, I've been impressed with Clark Lee every time he's talked about his team and he's done media stuff. And when he's come on this show, again, I've been impressed with practice and all these things. And certainly this is who he is. He is going to be a very calm presence. And I watched him quite a bit the other night. There was very little reaction from him out there. He was very much sort of, and I think that's how he's always going to be. So, if things go well, people are like, oh, look at that calm and all that chaos going around him. And that just rubs off on your team, and no one freaks out. And, kudos to Clark Lee. And if you play like they played the other night, it's like, what? Why isn't he screaming at people? Like, show some emotion, do something. Which, again, that's just how it is. If the product on the field is good, then whatever you're doing, I love that plan. And then if it's this bad, and it was bad. I mean, it wasn't just bad. It was bad.
Yep.
Then it's like you go to all this like, we need a ball coach who screams at – we need some Jeremy Pruitt out there. Like I've always thought, like the fact that Jeremy Pruitt and Clark Lee could both hold the same job is just amazing.
It is.
Like they're both SEC head football coaches. Like those two people, it's quite amazing. So we've already gotten into this whole, he's not emotional enough. He needs a screen. All that, and it's just. But that's how it goes. It's how it goes in this job. And look, this is a public job and you are basically you're trying to produce entertainment that people want to pay to watch. You're in competition. And there are 12 days a year that everyone gets to see all the work you do and what it means, what the payoff is. This was not a good vision of that. That's just how it is. So he needs something else put on the film, so to speak.
Yeah.
Real fast.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Will from Nashville texting in. Good coverage as always, guys. Y'all know I'm a Vanderbilt fan, and obviously you can't draw sweeping conclusions after one game, but very disappointing. Joe, I didn't see it. Did they look well coached in terms of the stupid penalties / general sloppiness in the game?
Offensively, they did not. They had a lot of the stupid penalties and the pre-snap stuff. Now they had some other offensive line penalties that were probably a result of deficiencies, like holding and stuff like that. But no, they had way too many mistakes. I mean, I think offensively, like defensively, I was more surprised because I just didn't expect ETSU to just be able to run at them. But offensively, I think was a worse night. Offensively was a worse plan, play calling, and usage of talent because I know that Ken Seals can play. I think a lot of Mike Wright as a talent. And they have good receivers who have produced in the SEC. And Will Shepard just carried on what he's been. I mean, he is the favorite target, certainly of Ken Seals. He got targeted 19 times the other night. He had 9 catches for 84 yards. He's a good player. So they have some skill. They've got some guys who can play in the SEC on a Saturday and make plays against SEC defensive backs. Now, if you can't block anyone, it doesn't matter. But I also thought that the offensive coach staff did not do enough to help their players. So I would say, no, it's hard to come away from that game and say there was anything good, including the coaching.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texting in. I was encouraged by the Vandy game. They showed up and played hard, even though they know they aren't a real SEC team.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, then your bar, sir, is like the tiniest fire ant could clear it. I mean, my gosh. I don't mean to rip on someone on a nice Labor Day, but you're encouraged by that crap? I mean, come on.
They played well against ETSU. Actually, they didn't. Played hard, though.
I'm going to have to text you back.
Wayne on the text line. If Clark Lee isn't going to communicate with his players or assistant coaches during the game, he might as well go to the press box, or better yet, just stay at home. This is coming from Wayne. So
right.
Wayne is upset.
I've heard a lot of this in the last couple of days. A lot of comments on my column off the game. I'm still responding to comments on that, including like, just get rid of the program. Just please, no more football program. I mean, it's
Joe thrives off these comments. Look at his texting fingers right now. He's like, I need to text back as soon as possible.
Well, it's going.
No, I need to swear at Ben now. I can't do that on the air. I need to throw some F-bombs at him. I'm just kidding. I will text him, though.
Dennis texting in on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. People often confuse yelling and antics with fire and leadership.
Yeah,
that is true.
Well, listen, it's like let's go to the contrast of Jeremy Pruitt or of Clark Lee. Jeremy Pruitt, he's someone who comes to mind. Like think about kicking the dry erase board and just screaming and I mean, man, I was on the field. It was a BYU game, and they give up the big play to Zach Wilson, BYU, and he spends an entire timeout screaming every possible piece of profanity in the face of Alontae, not talking to his team, not talking about the next. And by the way, then Alontae Taylor gives up inside leverage on a slant and as Pruitt told us after the game, every time they lined up in that to the field side, they were going slant, but Taylor didn't play inside leverage. And as I wrote that night, well, maybe you should have spent the time out talking about that instead of screaming F-bombs at him.
Maybe so.
So again, no, but when things were going well, what did people say? Oh, that fire, that's a ball coach.
Passion.
You get past. There's different ways to do it. I mean, we watched Brian Kelly last night. Clark Lee coached under Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly has eviscerated his quarterbacks on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
Like to the point a couple times where I'm like, dude, get him away from the kid.
Right.
Well, Brian Kelly's been pretty successful. If you win, whatever your personality is good. If you lose, whatever your personality is bad. I would, in general, agree that a head coach, it's not like I watch Clark Lee every single second of the game. I'm in the press box. We're behind the Vanderbilt bench. I did watch him a lot, and I thought he was very much an observer and probably should be more vocal. But again, if that's your personality, if that's what you want to do. He had assistants all over the place running around yelling and stuff. If you win, then that's a great plan, And if you lose, this will be part of what people have a problem with about Clark Lee.
Christopher on Periscope says, I will admit Vandy gets a tough hand. Academics, poor football history, lack of athletic department development, and competing in the SEC would drag down any program. This program has a long way to go under Clark Lee, but it will be interesting to see how he does.
I mean, ultimately, look, I've been saying this for months. When you look at the investment, the administrative support, you look at, the chancellor, Daniel Diermeyer, who, by the way, was hanging out in the press box and going, talking to all the reporters before the game, AD Candace Lee, what they seem to have in terms of people getting along, being on the same page, investment, this city, name, image, likeness, new coach. I'm still very intrigued by what Vanderbilt could become. This doesn't change my mind that he could do something and really bring them to a new level. But the one game of football that we've seen, it was just abysmal. I was stunned. I mean, I really thought that we'd see some signs of all the stuff they've been trying to change with the culture.
Yes.
And there just was nothing positive.
Well, there's been a lot of comparisons to the Temple game to begin Derek Mason's tenure, and I was in the house for that one. It was something to watch, and it was awful. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, this is worse. Like, Temple is an FBS football team, and at the time, Matt Rule was the coach. This is a bad loss.
Well, yeah, it's way worse as who you lost to. Again, I think Randy Sanders is doing a good job at ETSU. He's a good coach. Has great history as an OC, as you know.
That's right.
But Temple, Matt Rule, that was certainly a better program. Now the difference, though, is that Derek Mason inherited a good program.
Correct.
So the idea was, can you take it to the next level? And he talked about doing that, and then that happens. This is inheriting an 0-9 team from Derek Mason. 0-9 in the SEC, but still 0-9. So, yeah, now it's like, can you somehow get this back to being decent? So from that perspective, I guess you could say it's not as bad, but the specific loss to the specific opponent is worse.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on college football and look at how Week 1 impacted the college football playoff picture. We'll do this each and every Monday here on Robby and Rexrode. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Go to GameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. You can save cash with a purchase of a $10 gift card for Retro Snow for only $5. Nashville's original shaved ice truck, bringing back snowballs with creativity and pure cane sugar, dreaming up new flavor combinations and adding fresh, delicious toppings is what makes us Retro Snow and Nashville's original shaved ice truck. Go visit their first ever permanent location in the Nations at 806 51st Avenue North, open Friday 4 to 7 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can check out Retro Snow's truck schedule at retrosnowtruck.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game presented by Volunteer State Bank. Real people, real solutions right here. Remember, FDIC equal housing lender, and it was quite the weekend in the world of college football, and the college football playoff picture already impacted early on, Joe Rexrode. But honestly, I look at it from week one, and I feel pretty much the same as I felt heading into the season about it, and that is this. Even with the big game of Georgia and Clemson over the weekend, Georgia gets a big win. I think that impacts the college football playoff more if Georgia loses that game, because I still think Clemson's going to be in there. I think they're going to run the table the rest of the way. I think Georgia now has a pretty good track to get into the college football playoff, and I feel great about Alabama and Ohio State. So my 4 teams that I had to make it before the season began, still feeling pretty good about, Joe Rexrode.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just looking at –
Sorry, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they've got to hope someone stumbles. Yeah, I mean, even though Clemson has. Like Clemson, I look at their schedule. They are at Pitt. Pitt looks pretty good so far. We're gonna get a good.
We're about to find out.
By the way, we're gonna have Pat Narduzzi on this week.
All right,
a little Pat Narduzzi on the show this week.
Yeah,
so already badgered him. He's like, all right. So we'll get Pat on the show to talk some.
We think we can get him to guarantee victory or something. Probably not.
You never know with Narduzzi. He's a good talker. But I mean, okay, Clemson's there. They're at Louisville. At NC State, yeah. No, they're going to run the table, and they're going to be there. And Georgia is going to run the table.
You think so?
Well, run the table to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their schedule is pretty soft this year.
Georgia's is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
outside of obviously Clemson. You just had Clemson, so it's not that soft. But like the next few weeks here, and like their crossover play in the SEC, they should be fine.
Yeah. Oh, so Clemson's schedule is soft. But, yeah, Georgia's now is.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And Alabama, Texas A&M, great. They're not. I can't buy it. I can't buy anybody but Alabama. And if Alabama goes into Atlanta and handles Georgia, and that's their only loss, yep, they're fine. And then I'm just going to Ohio State looked a little bit vulnerable for a while. PJ Fleck,
that
they
boat
were
was rowing
the boat, but
then it sunk.
I mean, they do have, Ohio State has a tougher road than like Georgia and Clemson, for example, but I think they'll be fine. So it'll probably be the same 4 teams, and we'll like if we weekly talk about this, it's going to be the same thing until shocking events happen. That probably won't happen.
Well, what if, Oklahoma struggled this weekend, 40-35 against Tulane? What if they figure things out and go undefeated?
Well,
like if Oklahoma is undefeated, even though you look at their schedule, other than the Iowa State game, which by that time I think Iowa State's not going to be quite as good as they are right now in the rankings, there's not a lot there on that Oklahoma schedule.
Yeah, so let's say they do. They go undefeated, and you're comparing them against a Clemson that lost to Georgia and a Georgia that lost to Alabama. I don't see how anyone in their right mind could put Oklahoma in over them. Some people will say undefeated.
Yeah.
And this is why I like that we have a committee, because a committee can watch Oklahoma play and watch those teams play and say they'd lose by 3 touchdowns to both those teams.
Yeah.
So, no, Oklahoma needs someone to slip up to get in the playoff.
No love for the Big 12. Just continued bad news for the Big 12.
Oklahoma doesn't even have love for the Big 12,
That's
Robby.
true.
That's right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oklahoma, they're you could call them a Big 12 team or a pre-SEC team.
Yes.
It's like pre-K for them, pre-SEC.
Still working on that defense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, like, Tulane, they look good.
Yeah.
But really? Like, you had to barely get the QB down and maybe late hit him even on that play.
Yeah.
He ends up a half yard shorter. Who knows how that game turns out? So, sadly for this sport, see this thing, I saw some of this reaction. I thought it was an incredible weekend of football.
Thought it was too.
I loved it. Last night was great. Like either of those teams last night, are they going to beat like a Clemson? I don't think so, but it was great. So you can get hung up in college football on the fact that we basically know who's going to be in the playoff, or you could still enjoy like all the great games and whatever your team is. Like I'd be excited if I was at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sparty homers in my household, they were awfully excited Friday night, running all over Northwestern. They're not going to threaten for anything. They might win 7 games this year. But whatever. It was fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Tennessee right now, you're interested to see what you can do against Joe Milton. Nobody has any lofty expectations for Tennessee, but you're in on watching your team, right?
For sure. It's going to look. This I believe it's 11 o'clock game on Saturday. It's going to be interesting. Pittsburgh, Tennessee. I think the early returns were Pittsburgh a slight favorite.
Is that what it is right now?
Are you surprised by that?
No.
I'm not
I think
either.
Pittsburgh should be a slight favorite.
Yeah.
I think that's the right call. Lot to prove here for Tennessee.
I will say the college football picture not yet complete for week 1. There is a game tonight, Ole Miss and Louisville, and going to be without Lane Kiffin. That takes away some of the fun. No Lane Kiffin in there.
It does. Lane. It's funny how things work in life. Like Lane Kiffin is now like this great voice of reason in the world, you know. But actually, the Lane Kiffin situation is a great example of because they're 100% vaxxed, there's no close contact. Like basically their quarterback could be out tonight, and others, if not for that fact. So there's a good example of how that matters and how that helps you on the field if you can get there.
Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss still a 9.5-point favorite, even without Lane Kiffin tonight.
L's down, Jared. L's down.
L's down.
Oh, is that the big?
That's the thing.
Is that what
L's
they say on
down.
Catterday?
L's down like
L's
this.
down. So was that like a response to the horns down thing, or does that predate the horns down?
Oh, I bet it's a response.
Yeah.
It's a response.
Everything is like your rival team down, whatever they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody down except for
L's down. Looks like putting a gun in a holster. You know?
I will say this though, guys. Think about it. It's week 1. We already essentially know 90% who will be the 4 teams. Doesn't this kind of get you excited for a 12-team playoff?
Yeah, like I was always for this. I just thought this is all you need. We talked last week about like Auburn that year, Jason Campbell. They got left out. An undefeated Auburn team. Instead, it's Oklahoma USC. Like, that can't happen. But you're not like you will never go to a 5th team, I don't think, and say, that team was going to win it all. Like I think you're fine with 4, but yes, the fact that it's so predictable. And it's just there's this upper crust that's a small group, and then there's everybody else. Yeah, I'm for the 12 team. It just lets teams have access to it, and maybe they can pull off upsets, and maybe the landscape may change by then too. So yes, but I also I think people overly obsessed with that it's only about the playoff teams are missing like what's in front of them, which is pretty great.
Is Bryce Young going to win the Heisman that we learned week 1 in college football?
Yes.
He looked awfully good.
He would have to be, in the
everybody's preseason favorite was Spencer Rattler. And I got to tell you, did not look great for the Oklahoma quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, he had some real bad mistakes. I mean, they won because of their offense.
Sure.
So, but to me, probably Bryce Young. I mean, there's nobody offensively. Obviously, Uiagalelei hurt by the other night.
He was.
You have to be. There's nobody offensively. JT Daniels honestly didn't help himself either. I mean, a 10-3 game's not helping anybody on offense.
No.
A 10-3
Especially
game with no offensive touchdowns.
Yes.
So there's still a lot of season to go. And, there's always a couple of guys who are just doing ridiculous things statistically that could get in there. It would be very boring if just the Alabama quarterback won because – he's really good, but also he's just the Alabama quarterback. But I don't know what the list would be right now.
Tua didn't win a Heisman. Mac Jones didn't win a Heisman.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, Tua would have won a Heisman.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, he would have. But somebody will emerge. Maybe Zach Charbonnet for UCLA. He had an awesome game.
He did. Pretty awesome game.
Former Michigan Wolverine.
That is right.
Maybe Joe Milton.
When we come back, we've got a very interesting story regarding Mike Vrabel and former Texas coach Tom Herman. Kind of an interesting connection here. We'll get to that coming up next. Maybe almost literally an interesting connection. But on the other side, this is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Tune into this weekend's NFL Game of the Week on 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. This Sunday's NFL Game of the Week is the Cleveland Browns taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Coverage begins at 2:45 with a 3:25 kickoff. Make sure you're also tuning in tonight on ESPN 94.9 from 7 to 8 p.m. for NSC Backstage, featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. You can watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and thegamenashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Volunteer State Bank. Visit volstatebank.com to learn more about our free Kasasa checking account. Volunteer State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Labor Day morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode, an interesting kind of connection that you've uncovered and that you've told me about of Mike Vrabel and Tom Herman, which I'm very fascinated to hear more of the story. We talked briefly about it during a break one time, a couple of segments ago. But what is the connection that's out there between Mike Vrabel and Tom Herman that you've come across here?
Well, okay, so Peter King had it in his Monday column, but this is from a podcast, okay, and it's funny because I got an email from Ray Stallone.
Okay.
Who apparently produces this podcast. It's called Glory Days, Dreams and Nightmares, Season 1, and it's about the 2014 Ohio State National Championship season. and it's Buckeye Joshua Perry and Evan Spencer, who are both great players on that team. So it's a podcast about that. Now, Joshua Perry is also he does a podcast with Kayla Anderson. He's also one of the guys I talked to last summer for a piece on the 2012 Buckeyes and Vrabel and Urban Meyer and all the connections and how that kind of translates to what the Titans have as a coaching staff. Shane Bowen among those, and Stretch too, by the way. Stretch, all kinds of people who are here who were there then. So one guy that I reached out to a lot of coaches, and I think everyone responded. The one who didn't respond, now, he was a head coach under fire at the time, but was Tom Herman.
Yes.
Tom Herman was radio silent, had apparently no interest in doing this piece about 2012 Ohio State and Mike Vrabel and all this stuff. So this makes a little more sense. So this is from Joshua Perry. This is a quote from Perry in the podcast. He's talking to Evan Spencer. Quote, "Do you remember when Tom Herman tried to fight Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel, a literal pit bull, and Tom Herman, a Yorkshire Terrier, barking at Vrabel, hold me back, hold me back." And Mike's like, "No, if he wants to fight, don't hold him back." That's end quote.
Jeez.
That's Joshua Perry from the podcast.
Don't hold him back. Let him come on down.
Yeah. Tom Herman's like, come on, man, please hold me, grab me, someone grab me, come on. He's like, struggling to Vrabel's like, no, let him go, really. I mean, talk about a mismatch. My goodness.
To say, man. Come on.
So that's interesting. So this is 13, okay, because 12, they went undefeated. They weren't very talented. That was one of the least talented Ohio State teams, in recent memory. It was Urban's first year. They go 12-0, but they have a bowl ban, so they can't, they can't do anything beyond 12-0. So 13 is that year actually. They lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. So I don't know when this was. That was the night of, you may remember this gif. I was in the same little locker area at Lucas Oil Stadium, the sad pizza, Urban Meyer.
Oh, yeah.
that was the sad pizza night. Urban sitting there sadly eating his whatever kind of pizza that was. But so I don't know when this fight happened. But so Vrabel at the time was D-line coach. The D-line coach ticking off the OC that much.
Jeez.
It's interesting.
Well, think about that, though. So you're going back to 8 years ago at this point, 9 years ago. So Vrabel is fresh off his playing days. Now, I wouldn't mess with Mike Vrabel right now, but he was even more in shape back then, you would think. And then Tom Herman trying to go after Vrabel, that would not have gone well for Tom Herman. I'm glad whoever was there holding them back held him back, because that would not have gone well.
Well, the thing I need to know now is what did Vrabel say?
I know.
Because you've got to be just stupid if you're Tom Herman to even think about this. I mean, you got to be stupid to even look funny at him, right?
You would think so.
But you actually something that Vrabel said actually got him that fired up that he wanted to fake fight him and hope someone held him back.
I mean, Tom Herman looks like he's, normal
He's
sized
an average sized man.
I'm sure that there are situations he could handle himself well in. Mike Vrabel's not one of those situations.
Right. I mean, yeah, he could,
You can ask him today, Joe, in his press
he
conference.
could fight Jeremy Pruitt. What's that?
You can ask Vrabel today in his press conference.
Yeah, you could say, let's go back. Let's revisit this disagreement you had with Tom Herman.
Hi, Mike. I know that the season's starting this week and everything, but what about that fight with Tom Herman back in 2013?
What'd you say?
I need Jared. Yeah, exactly. I need Jared to show up today at the presser. Jared, if you're listening, come to the presser. I know it's Labor Day. You probably are drinking some whatever those
White
things are
Claws.
called. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Some White Claws on a boat somewhere. But if you're not, I think you should come to the presser and ask Vrabel about the fight with Tom Herman.
Some Tom Brady avocado tequila.
Yeah, there you go. I need to listen to this podcast to see if there's any more context given to, because if you drop that, isn't the automatic question is, okay, well, why did it get to this?
Yes.
But yeah, Tom Herman. Well, now I know. Now I don't feel as bad about Tom Herman not responding to interview requests about Mike Vrabel.
Maybe it makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah.
Where is Tom Herman now, by the way?
I think he's with the Bears.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he is an analyst with the Bears. So
he is.
Yep.
Offensive analyst for the Chicago Bears. So Tom Herman now working with Justin Fields, which means Tom Herman was here a couple of weeks ago while Mike Vrabel was not on the field.
Ooh. That's right. That's a good thing, I guess.
I guess so.
Worked out pretty well for all involved.
Oh,
well,
Vrabel.
so what? Tom Herman, who, by the way, LSU fans across the board wanted him.
Oh yeah,
they didn't get him. Now you got Coach O, but then he goes to Texas, doesn't work out. Also, Tom Herman, I think, would be a wonderful candidate when Bill O'Brien inevitably gets a head coaching job because of this rehab coaching assignment with Alabama, when they'll light up the world with his offense.
Sure.
Tom Herman could be next. He could be the next Nick Saban reclamation project. Bring him in. Okay, you score 40 points a game with Alabama, and then you get a job somewhere else.
Hey, maybe we're
playing it all. Yeah, it's all playing out. Tom Herman trying to fight Mike Vrabel. Boy.
I really need there to be some sort of dust up sometime. I'm not saying I'm rooting for a fight, but like I'm trying to think around. We've talked about the NFL. I put college sports in there too. Like there's no head coach out there that, but yeah, take on Mike Vrabel. See how that goes.
Coach O, like if Coach O were a little younger, he's
maybe it probably still wouldn't go well.
Probably not. Big guy though.
Big dude.
Big burly guy. Yeah. I mean,
Dan Campbell's the only one.
Dan Campbell would be epic, man. Lions Titans Super Bowl.
I can see it now.
Dan Campbell and Vrabel pre-game, kind of like Jim Harbaugh and or not Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh and Vrabel kind of had some words before that game last year, but John Harbaugh wasn't
thinking about anything other than
he wasn't coming close to making that physical. He didn't need anybody to fake hold him back.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, so.
I don't know whether to respect that from Tom Herman or to just question his sanity. Maybe a little bit of both.
Well, it's just like with Clark Lee or whoever. If things are going well, then whatever your personality is, however you do it is smart and it's the right way to do it. And then if Tom Herman were winning at Texas right now, then I might be like, yeah,
a little fiery.
That guy's tough and feisty. But since it didn't work out, it's just dumb. Never mind. It's just dumb.
It's just dumb.
It's just dumb. But again, I need to Vrabel, great thrower of barbs. Just again on the practice field, so he's the head coach. These are players, but just fantastic barbs. And what must the barb have been in that coaching room or wherever they were? Well, if the players saw it, then it must have been on the practice field.
Must have been,
or I guess a team meeting, but probably on the practice field. What must he have said for Tom Herman to actually even get to that point? I gotta know.
It's got to be somewhere for sure. And then, it's interesting. We talked about the piece last week at The Athletic, taking kind of a deeper look at Mike Vrabel and how Mike Vrabel has become Mike Vrabel at the Titans level. It's interesting, that piece, a little bit more of an in-depth look at Vrabel's personality and how he's gotten to this point in his coaching career. He's a fascinating guy when he wants to be. He really is.
Yeah, it was a really good piece by Dan Pompei.
Yeah.
And I think there's some themes that have been written about before and comments that were similar to some given before by some players about, Vrabel and life balance and sort of like football guy, intense, you have to spill it every time you're in the practice field. But it's like, okay, your kid has a game. Yeah, go watch your kid play a game. Like understanding, personal stuff has to be respected. So no, I thought it was a really good piece, and some more stuff on his family as well. So look, it's the balance of pushing people and not alienating people. That's a great challenge in coaching.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dennis texting in. So did Vrabel fake a positive test just to avoid possibly running into Tom Herman?
There we go.
It could have been it.
So through all of this, it's actually Vrabel has been afraid of Tom Herman. I think that adds up. I just love the fact that he's like, no, don't hold him back. No, come on, let him go. Come on,
over here.
Come on. There's got to be video of this somewhere, right? Like someone must have had their phone out.
I've been Googling trying to find it for the whole segment. No.
I guess
I feel like if there was, we'd have probably seen it by now.
I guess if you're going back to 2013, but everybody could.
Oh, their phones.
Yeah,
you
phones
could,
taking
you could
video.
Film. Yeah,
may not have been the best quality.
It's a little bit different now. Yeah,
but it just seems like now there's no way that would happen without someone taping it, right? Like everyone's conditioned now to take video of everything.
Yeah, like we see, like there's all these fights now in the stands at college sporting events and MLB games. Like there was like 4 over the weekend. Like what's happening here? Why is everybody fighting each other at these games?
Well,
you just watch a game.
Well, a buddy of mine this weekend was like, "Are there way more fights happening, or is it just that like we are like everything's recorded?"
That could be.
I mean, that Rams fan who took on like 8. Like we had that, like you could watch that from like 5 different camera angles, like it was a show.
Oh yeah,
and then you had the woman behind lower, like throwing the beer over the top and getting him going nuts, right? I mean, we had the perspective of her from like over here, and then I saw 3 different angles of that thing.
Oh yeah,
so maybe it's. Look, I've been to Bears-Lions game.
There's one in Memphis over the weekend.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I heard that was, but I've been to Bears-Lions games where. Like it was just a brawl fest, and this is quite a few years ago. This is like Jay Cutler era, so I think it's maybe that we just film it more.
Could be. I don't know. It just seems like it's happening a lot. We'll continue to take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. When we come back, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll have some tickets to give away as well to the Nashville Sounds. Coming up next, NFL fans, don't miss Nashville's best NFL pregame show live from Rock Bottom Brewery in downtown Nashville this Sunday. The NFL pregame show features Jarrett Stillman, Mark Howard, and former Titans wide receiver Chris Sanders. Join them from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. live at Rock Bottom Brewery on Broadway prior to the Titans taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The NFL pregame show is brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. We'll be right back here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball tomorrow night on ESPN 94.9 as the Sounds begin a 6-game homestand at First Horizon Park against Memphis, the AAA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. Nashville Sounds Baseball presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. And speaking of the Nashville Sounds, we've got some tickets to give away to see the Sounds take on Memphis coming up at First Horizon Park this Sunday. Be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caller number 3 will win a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Sounds take on Memphis coming up at First Horizon Park this Sunday. And you'll also be able to see Michelle Konezovic throw the first pitch in that game as well. We're looking forward to it coming up.
Guys, I've been practicing.
Oh, yeah.
Have you?
She's got that arm flowing, ready to go for Sunday.
Nice. I can't wait.
It's going to be some good stuff. So make sure you're caller number 3, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You can also join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will take place on November the 5th at Nissan Stadium. You can register and learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. Once again, that's lightthenight.org/TN. Joe Rexrode, interesting game last night between Notre Dame and Florida State. Notre Dame gets it done in overtime, 41-38. Great game on the college football docket last night. Mackenzie Milton back in at quarterback, which if you saw the injury that he sustained, what was that, 2018? I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years now since that took place. For him to be back on the field at all, pretty incredible, but he played well last night when given the opportunity.
Nah, it was awesome. I mean, it should have been, again, if this was a scripted movie or TV show, Florida State wins, and instead, Mike Norvell iced his own kicker in overtime, and they lost, but incredible to watch what Mackenzie Milton did. They had his parents in the stands, his mom's crying. They're up there just. It's just incredible. He was told he certainly would never play again, and they weren't sure about, even just his general mobility in life, given the severity of his injuries. So, pretty fantastic stuff.
Yeah,
this is the two teams that probably won't be in the playoff, but I'll watch that game over and over again.
Absolutely, great game last night between Florida State and Notre Dame, including some interesting comments after the game from Brian Kelly as well. That's apparently got people all in a rage today on Twitter. I did not see this until earlier today when you made me aware of these comments, but people on Twitter are pretty upset at Brian Kelly right now.
So let me see if I can find the exact line. But basically, he's like, it's all about execution. I wanted to execute my team. Okay?
Yes.
So
implying they did not execute very well.
Right, and then, of course, he makes the joke about killing everyone,
yes.
I suppose.
Yes.
Or maybe our entire team needs to be executed tonight, okay?
Yes.
So, this is a John McKay reference. John McKay, the long-time – I mean, if you want to Google something, if you're not familiar with, John McKay and the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy was – they were early in their time as a franchise – as an expansion franchise in the NFL with those creamsicle uniforms, and they were just guaranteed to go 2-14.
Some good-looking uniforms, though.
So, yeah, those were pretty. So anyway, this is what Kelly said in the post game. He's like, it's an old John McKay quote. I was kidding. I was being tongue in cheek. It wasn't funny. I was making a joke about it. It was taken serious. Are you people crazy? And I must say, this is kind of like with the Dilfer thing last week. I can't get outraged about this. I understand. I mean, look,
I'm so tired of Twitter. I really am.
Well, yeah.
It's so bad.
But someone, speaking of Twitter, see, it also has benefit. Someone said, gosh, good thing he didn't say this other John McKay line, which was, we're 3 or 4 plane crashes away from the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's a little bit different.
It's, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Just being funny. So, that was one of those moments where big reaction to it, and it's like, okay. I mean, it probably wasn't that funny, I guess.
I don't think of Brian Kelly as this big comedian,
right? So. John McKay, that's who he was.
Right.
He's like the Duffy Doherty. The good news is we got 20 starters back from last year. The bad news is we got 20 starters back from last
Yes.
year. That's John McKay. That's not Brian Kelly. He's not typically very funny at all. So the joke probably didn't go over well, but he wasn't actually saying he wanted to kill his team.
Michelle, we have this sound? All right, let's hear last night after the game from Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly. Here's what he had to say after the game last night.
Game had it all. Yeah. What did you think of your team's ability to withstand Florida State's impressive comeback?
I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight.
That was Brian Kelly. I mean, it's a decent attempt at humor.
Hey.
Again, the delivery's not great. I wouldn't say he's necessarily funny, but I appreciate the attempt.
That is an important part of the joke is that I'm in favor of execution. Yes. I mean, that's actually an important part of the. So it almost feels like, is it possible that he had this planned? Like, I'm going to be a new Brian Kelly this year. I'm going to be a funny guy.
Yeah.
Now, of course, his team could have executed extremely well, and then he wouldn't be able to use that joke. But at some point, that joke was ready to be used, and he used it. So I don't know. We'll see if there's any reaction today. I hope not.
I hope not.
I mean, let it go.
Tom Pelissero coming out says the Titans are waiving cornerback Chris Jones. A source said with a lot of cornerback needy teams, he could get claimed. So Titans now down to 52 on the 52-man roster with Chris Jones being waived.
Yeah, when they had the initial not real 53, I came up with 5 names that I think will be out once everybody comes off the COVID list, and he was the first guy I thought of. There's just no room for him. They were way too heavy at DB, so this is completely expected that he would be cut. So I think at least one person should be activated as long as all went well from the COVID list today. Yeah. And Ben Jones and Nate Davis maybe today or maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I don't have the timelines in front of me, but both of them soon and in theory available for Sunday, which would be big. Titans need both those guys on the field starting, playing the whole game Sunday.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that, and they did get some good news over the weekend. Ryan Tannehill has been activated off of the COVID list, so it looks like Tannehill will be at practice today and throughout the week here, and then will be available for the Titans coming up as they begin week 1 against Arizona. So obviously, very good news to get your starting quarterback into the fold, and Ryan Tannehill should be full go as the Titans move ahead this week. And Joe, we finally made it. Week 1 of the NFL season is upon us. We just had a wonderful weekend of college football. Our first edition of Pigskin Pick'em coming up on Friday. This is a big week here on the show.
It is. And fantasy drafts. Our fantasy draft. And you know what?
I got a big one tonight, too.
Me, too.
Big one.
And guess what? Titans media that got your butt kicked by me last year, it's going to happen again this year. Right. And I'm not taking a nap before the draft at 9 o'clock tonight.
I don't know if I buy that.
Joe is napping.
I would love to. Well, it's like Titans practice. We've got a barbecue we have to go to. When am I going to find a nap?
You got to fit in some time right after the barbecue.
You know what I should do? I should just auto-draft. I should just auto-draft and still win the Titans Media League. Maybe I'll do that tonight.
Maybe a little bit too much confidence coming from Joe Rexrode.
But then
Just
I'd
a
get
little
sleep,
bit.
though. Then I'd sleep.
You would.
It's very needed.
That does it for us today here on the program. We'll be back at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Robby and Rexrode presented by Volunteer State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Darren Donica Chase coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.